It's 7 o'clock, so seeing a quorum here. Going to call the Town of Wakefield Board of Appeals meeting to order for Wednesday, July 10th. I'll remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. It will be available on the town's website in the next couple of days. I'll start by taking a roll call. Dave Hatfield.
Here.
Chip Tarbell.
Here.
Joe Pride.
Here.
Mickey Feely.
Here.
Kasumi Humphreys.
Yeah.
Greg Demersion.
Here.
Kirsten Brown.
Here.
My name is Tom Lucy, and obviously I am here. And with that, I'm going to ask our clerk to do the legal notice. Joe.
Yep, sure thing. Consistent with the governor's orders extending certain provisions of the open meeting law, every effort we made to allow the public to view and or listen to the meeting in real time. If you do not have a camera or microphone on your computer, you may use the following dial-in number: 1-301-715-8592, meeting ID 878-8415-5435, passcode 430433. Please only use dial-in or computer and not both, as audio feedback will distort the meeting. This meeting will be audio and video recorded. In compliance with the Americans with Disability Act, this location is accessible to people with disabilities. Wakefield provides reasonable accommodations and or language assistance free of charge upon request. If you are a person with a disability and require information on materials in an alternate format, or if you require any other accommodations, please contact the town's disability coordinator, William Renault, town engineer, at 781-246-6308. As far in advance of the event as possible, every effort will be made to grant your request. Advance notification will enable the town to meet reasonable arrangements to remove an accessibility barrier for you. 1. Continued hearings. 2. 25-1. Raja De Silva Corporation application for a special permit under Article 4, Section 190-23 of the Wakefield zoning bylaw to allow a daycare center in an existing building. The property is shown as map 17, lot parcel 138 of the assessors map, and is located at 380-382 Main Street. Board of Appeals.
Thank you, Joe. Appreciate that. As is our custom, there's a request for continuance, so I'll read that into the record first. So if there's anyone here for that, this matter is going to be continued. It's case 2450 G&T Main Street LLC. I have a letter from attorney Brian McGrail dated July 10th, 2024. Please continue this matter until your hearing on August 14th, 2024, and that we are in the process of working on renovations to the plans as requested by the board. Please also let this letter confirm that the applicant has agreed to extend the time for the board to render and file any decision until September 30th, 2024. So we'll be looking for a continuance to August and an extension till September 30th, if someone wants to make a motion on that.
Mr. Chair, I move that I'm sorry, didn't get the date, meant to write it down.
August 14th, yeah,
and extend.
September 30th.
Thank you, sorry.
No problem. Thank you for the motion.
So I move that we continue the matter at 340 and 48 Main Street to our meeting on August 14th, 2024, and accept the applicant's request to extend the time for the board to render a decision on this hearing to September 30th, 2024.
Seconded.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Seeing, hearing none, regular voting members, Dave,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
and I vote yes. So that matter is continued. Next up on continued hearings is case 24-10, the residences at Nahant LLC. I see Mr. Panos on the screen. So Mr. Panos, floor is yours. But before I give you the floor, I'll make a note, and I'm sure you were going to bring this up too. I received an email from Lieutenant Anderson from the Traffic Advisory Committee. There's a that committee will meet on Friday, July 26th, and the first thing in the morning. And it will for the purposes of continuing its dialogue with this matter. So we will not be discussing traffic on this case tonight. Through some email correspondence with Mr. Panos, the plan is to go through the engineering with Mr. Cameron, I believe, and those matters that those materials that were filed on July 20, excuse me, for the June 26 hearing. Mr. Cameron was unable to attend, so he couldn't go through those. We also hope to discuss a lighting plan, and a member of the board asked about the distances between the street wires and the balconies on this project. And we were hoping that someone from the development team could have connected with the Wakefield's Municipal Light Department on that subject. Mr. Panos, I see that as our agenda tonight. You have anything you want to add to that?
No, just administratively, the timing is perfect. I know that Warren Cameron Group interacted with Municipal Light and got responses just today. So they are certainly prepared to talk about those questions and queries that Mr. Tarbell put forward in his email to us a couple of days ago with regard to those telephone pole distances and even more. As far as the lighting plan is concerned, that is still being worked on, and we will get that to you as soon as it's complete. There is a contractor working on that though currently. I am joined tonight, and for the record, by the way, my name is Jason Panos, practicing law at 246 Andover Street, Peabody, Massachusetts. I'm joined tonight by Scott Cameron, principal at the Warren Cameron Group. Just as a bit of a recap, on May 23rd, test pits were conducted by Mr. Cameron, observed by the town engineer, who I see is also online, and also supervised by our hired LSP, Luke Fabry, which resulted in a letter that I submitted to you from him, a report on his findings on 21E, oil sheen, all of that. And we'll go over that in a moment. Also on Friday, June 21st, we submitted preliminary architect plans, which were reported on and presented by SV Design at the last meeting on June 26th. Preliminary civil and engineering plans, which are going to be reviewed in detail tonight. A stormwater management technical report. The updated list of exemptions and waiver requests, which we'll talk a little bit about tonight. And as I indicated, the report from Geological Field Services on the 21E. On Monday, June 24th, Vanessa and Associates submitted technical responses to the TAC, which we will be prepared to discuss at its July 26th meeting. With that, I'd like to, through you, Chair, turn it over to Scott Cameron to give first highlights on what is in his civil plans and stormwater management report, and then he's going to walk you through the details of that.
Yeah, I would just add, in terms of schedule, I want to put a marker down to talk about schedule at the end of this, because this is the first time we're going to have an engineer here for this project.
Okay.
That we're really now just starting to get a full picture of this project with all the materials needed for the town, that the board needs to review it, and that we're, 60 days out. So we've used, 120 days up, and we're just getting some really important information right now. I see this as, I want to put that in for the record, Gail, and make it very clear that here we are on July 10th. This is the first time that we're going to see an engineer for this project present some really important information to this board. And then we're gonna get more traffic information after the July 26th TAC hearing. And again, part of the delay in why TAC is still meeting was the result of this project team's inability to, or through confusion or whatever it was, I really don't want to get into it, that we had a late traffic study on this thing. So I want to put a marker down, Mr. Parnells, before we close out this hearing, that we are going to need to discuss schedule. And with that, Mr. Cameron, I think you can move forward with your presentation.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and staff. For the record, my name is Scott Cameron with the Moore and Cameron Group, 66 Elm Street in Danvers, Massachusetts. Thank you for having us tonight. Would it be all right if I shared my screen with some
Please do, you
slides?
should be able to.
Perfect. And just as a just quick background. So I was brought in on this to take over the civil engineering and land surveying responsibilities for the project. Last you saw me, we were quickly getting up to speed on this and getting underway with the technical portion of the design. And I'm gonna hope to walk that through with you today. Bill Ronald and I have not had a chance to connect on this yet directly, but I expect we'll be talking in the coming weeks about that piece and he's here tonight to speak to it as well. So just as a quick recap, Jason had mentioned the soil testing. When we got out here, the soils are obviously a really important part of any site design. We did get out. Bill was able to meet us out there to have a look in the test holes. He had already seen them once before as well. I need to see them with my own eyes. So we excavated a series of test holes around the property. The results were pretty consistent with what we would expect. Obviously, there's the bedrock which you can see from the street and sticking out of the ground around the property. But we did find pockets of really well draining soil. We found pockets of moderately well drained soil. And we found pockets of soil that that wouldn't be well drained. And all this information helped us, was used to put together the stormwater management design, which I'll walk through in a little bit. We also conducted a hydrant test out on site with the water department. The results of the water test were very good. There's good pressure in the street. The flow was good as well. We don't expect any issues with both fire flow or domestic water supply for the project. We did do some touch up as we're going through, obviously, the technical design. Things are getting polished and tightened up. But and I'll walk you through some of those updates on the site layout, nothing major. In your packages, you have what is a more complete set of plans now, which we had talked about with information on how the site's going to be prepared for construction, sediment erosion controls, the site layout plan, which you had that's been updated, your grading and drainage plan, your utility plan, your construction detail. The stormwater design is the bulk of our efforts at this phase of the project. We do start to get into the utility designs, obviously, with water and sewer. But there's only so far we can take that because the full building construction drawings won't be done until a much later phase for the building permit. But we do the studies for the sewer and the water, so we know we have capacity. The stormwater management piece includes hydrologic analysis, which is a study of stormwater where we look at existing and future conditions. And we evaluate what the impacts of development are on the site, and we use that information to design the stormwater best management practices. We're taking into consideration the rules and regulations, both the state and local. We are taking into consideration not just the water, the runoff, but also volume, groundwater recharge, treatment of the stormwater, construction best practices, plans, operation maintenance plans for the future condition, and then all the calculations for sizing of pipes and components and things like that. Jason mentioned earlier today, we did receive correspondence back from the Wakefield Municipal Gas and Light Department, which I didn't want to forward it to you an hour before the meeting, so I'll send that over to you immediately following the meeting. But to summarize, I'll go through some of the items that were brought up with respect to the wires. There are some things that will happen as part of the project, but it didn't seem like there were any issues out of the initial review. Still, obviously, a ways to go with the electric design, getting towards the building permit phase. So going back to the stormwater management, I just want to give a couple of high-level highlights from it, which I'll be walking through. Stormwater runoff from the entire project is going to be reduced everywhere. There are several areas where water exits the property. There's several areas where abutting properties enter the property. We're going to be the project will reduce runoff to Nahant Street. During our initial investigations, we identified an area where there's a large area of pavement and roof runoff and portions of the site that run directly off into Nahant Street through a driveway curb cut. A lot of the site doesn't go to Nahant Street, but this one area seemed like it was a high amount of pavement that was kind of concentrated right into Nahant Street. I'd envision that you probably do observe that in rain events and probably in the wintertime too. We looked at the abutting properties, reducing runoff and volume to the abutting properties. 29 Stark Ave and 85 Nahant Street are two abutting properties that receive runoff from this property. The project will substantially improve groundwater recharge. I'll walk you through that. I mentioned we not only looked at the rate of stormwater runoff, which is measured in volume per time. We also looked at the volume impacts. What is the actual volume of water exiting the property, and we provided mitigation for both. And again, we walked through and followed best engineering practices and obviously the state handbook and the Wakefield standards. Earlier on, Bill Renaud had published a memo. One of the areas of concerns he had mentioned in that memo was in a prior soil testing that he witnessed, there was a sheen they observed in a test hole. So we hired Luke Fabry from Geological Field Services, Inc. to come out. He met us out on property while I was doing my soil testing to have a look around. We did find a test hole with this sheen. We had a look at it. Luke's conclusion, which I agreed with, was that what you're seeing on all the test holes, we did find groundwater, and you would see kind of a sheen on it. And the sheen was more indicative of a naturally occurring manganese oxide, that it's effectively rust that comes out of the soil. And the big tell that is when you kind of disturb it, it's crystalline. When you disturb a petroleum-based sheen, it kind of swirls and looks differently. And we see this in test holes. Luke also took soil samples, did some sampling of the soil, and reported in his initial observations that there are no reportable conditions on the property under the MCP. And that the backfill on the site can be either used if suitable or removed from the property. And I'll walk you through that in coming plans just on the soil conditions. So with that, the plans. I'm going to walk through. I won't get into a ton of detail on all these. I'll focus more on the important stuff. Happy to answer questions on any of them if you do have them. But starting with the existing conditions plan, we did do some additional survey work out on the property. There are kind of some gaps and areas of missing information that I wanted to capture to better understand the existing condition of the site. And since the prior surveys have been done, some things have changed in the property because of the nature of the use. And there's a contractor yard there, and soil moves around with the equipment that's on the property now. So I wanted to update all that. We also added in the soil information. So we actually, we depict like a test hole cross section, and that's what you see in the bottom left corner of the existing conditions plan. And those correlate to the locations on the property where we dug those test holes. Just as a matter of general findings, to the west side of the property, we found some good soil. It wasn't the best drained soil, but it was sandy in nature and will receive stormwater. Towards the back of the property, we found some sands and gravels, but we also found some shallow bedrock conditions, which we took account for. More towards the middle of the property, we found some of the best soil. There are coarse sands, gravels in that area. And then as we went out towards Nahant Street, we didn't dig up near Nahant where the dwellings and the lawns are, because there's existing utilities in the ground, and there really wasn't a need to dig up all that area. We aren't planning to do any stormwater management up near Nahant Street, but the soil does get, you have areas of shallow rock and some poorly drained soils up near Nahant, so we won't be doing stormwater management there. The plans include a kind of a site preparation demolition plan. This would be further refined in your building permit for like a demo permit plan. It tends to get a lot more detail on these once a site contractor's hired and a general contractor's hired, and they start to put together their processes for how they're actually going to build the project. We always take a start here at the permit phase, so you guys can get a feel for what we're going to go through during the construction project. But this really outlines, and importantly, utilities that need to be, the surfaces that need to be cut and capped. Buildings have to be demolished, what materials are on site, what are we going to do with those, where are they going to go? This plan, so that's this plan. This has some notes on construction practices and starting to put together a construction sequence to follow. And these are general. Again, the site contract would ultimately be responsible for putting together that construction sequence later on, but we definitely want to start here. We have an erosion and sediment control plan. Obviously, this is really important during construction. We want to make sure that the site is controlled. We don't want an open site where you get a rain event and exposed dirt can run off the site. Best practices today include sizing for temporary sediment forebays, locations where we would expect water to travel. Your construction entrances, silt barriers, construction fencing, things of that nature, silt sacks if necessary on catch basins to capture anything. And this would be accompanied with the construction phase operation and maintenance plan, or another term for that is a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And this is the control document that we use during construction of projects. This being over an acre would be under EPA jurisdiction, which are minimum weekly inspections after every half-inch of rainfall, inspections, and regular and frequent upkeep on your erosion control systems. And erosion control during construction it's kind of a live, it's a live topic. It's not set it on a plan and forget it. You have to continually update it based on the time of year, weather conditions, phase of construction. And that's why we need so many inspections and so much oversight on that matter. All right, I'm going to walk through the site layout plan a little bit, which you've seen. I did do some markups on this to make it a little more obvious that some of the updates we included on here. So I'm going to walk you through some of this. During the surveys, we did get more definition on Nahant Street. So that resulted in some adjustments to the curb cut on the east side to make sure that complies with MAAB handicap compliance. Moving clockwise in the orange, we updated and fine-tuned the design of the handicap parking spaces on this side. These would be your van accessible parking spaces, so there's a larger loading zone for those as required by MAAB. Just below that, we added 4 EV charging spaces. So these would be the ones that are put into place for the project during the construction of the project. With the new stretch code and requirements under that, additional spaces, around 28 to 30 of them would also be prepped so they could be upgraded to EV in the future. So the term, which is a newer term, is EV ready. And that would be just spaces allocated, preferably outside of the building, that would have conduit and infrastructure in place so that you could wire and put in the EV spaces in the future as demand increases. The demand's not there today, which is why we prepare for it. Next, we did designate, and there's signage details, information on the plans for 15-minute parking spaces. So these would be your deliveries, Ubers, Amazon, mail, things like that, or takeout orders, things like that would be utilizing these spaces. The board was concerned about the location of the transformer, which was up near Nahant Street initially. We did find a place for that further back in the site where it won't be very visible. And that's here. Continuing on, we did add some additional compact parking spaces. This was partly due to more refinement of the building design and where some of the columns on the bump out here will land and trying to fit that in. We added an area of both compact and full-size visitor spaces that would be signed and reserved as such. We added more wayfinding signage to the plans, do not enters, exiting the garage, a prohibition on taking right turns, so everybody turns left and knows to turn left. We did some more adjustments to the sidewalk and the routes really around the entire building, just make sure everything complied horizontally and vertically with MAAB. In this area, we did an adjustment. This is where your trash room is, so the trash bins would come out through this way for pickup. We added bike rack areas in numerous locations around the site. We added an area for moving trucks. If there were to be, when moving trucks come in, this is the space where we would want them to park, which gives them direct access to kind of the back of the house. So you're not bringing furniture through the main lobby areas to damage the lobby areas. And we add additional, again, wayfinding signage as you enter the site on the west side. And of course, the zoning table was updated. Jason's going to cover the zoning a little later, so I'll move off. I won't cover that now. And the board had also asked for some information on the impervious coverages on the property, and so that's we included that information here in the bottom left, so you can reference that. All right, stormwater management, the bulk of our work. So during our analysis of the existing condition site, our due diligence, there were a few questionable areas. And just to back up to the existing condition survey, there are 2 catch basins on site, and we weren't able to find any record information or testimony as to where these catch basins went. We had some initial thoughts that perhaps these were leaching catch basins, which means there's no pipes that exit them. When you look at them, you kind of see a pipe going out, but you can't tell where it goes. There is no stormwater infrastructure in Nahant Street. In this area of Nahant Street, you don't find that in Nahant until several hundred feet down the road. So we hired a company to run a camera through the catch basins and these pipes. And what they identified was that they are actually connected to there's a 12-inch concrete pipe that is cut and capped. There's a brick and mortar end to it, so it ends on the property, and that pipe exits the property. There's a catch basin on the abutting property to the east. It turns and continues on. This drainage, it goes through across the adjacent streets to the east, eventually back out to Nahant Street. This is where the water drains from the majority of the site, and I'll show you a watershed map here. So this is a watershed map. In the various colors, you see kind of a cyan, a army green, peach, and then white. So these identify the 4 areas that we broke out for where water drains in the property, and the blue lines represent kind of the longest path of travel for stormwater runoff. So the white area, for the most part, all goes to these catch basins and out. So a lot of the site, it kind of, if you see it, it's a depression. And that's exactly how it works. The peach area is what goes out towards Nahant Street. I was talking about that area of pavement and roof That's this area to the east where it says this no stormwater flows towards the Hunt Street. So this is entirely unmitigated. It just fires down the steep driveway and straight out to the street in the existing condition. The green area to the west, this exits the site to a neighboring property. There's kind of a low spot over here where the neighborhood just the natural topography. It's been altered over the decades by human activity, but the water kind of collects there. We didn't observe any standing water in this area. It seems to drain into the ground well enough. The cyan area to the south exits in that direction. This goes through kind of the back of some lots. It's wooded, and then further to the southeast is a wetland area that we observed. I hired Seacamp Environmental. Mike Seacamp came out, and we took some observations of it. It's definitely a wetland. It's a bordering vegetated wetland. There's a little bit of buffer zone that extends into the property, which you will see on the plans in this area here. So I did identify that. We got some locations on the wetland from the survey instrumentation. We can get reflectorless shots on that, so we have an accurate location of the wetland. But that's where the cyan area goes. And then along the edge, there's been concern raised, and we've heard it. And the firsthand testimony from residents and folks that are here is really helpful with stormwater design. And we did hear about testimony about water from the property exiting onto abutting properties. I saw evidence of that. The property is active. There's construction equipment on site. It does seem, even from the 2 surveys on this, we can observe some changes in kind of the fill conditions back there. So I can imagine over the years things have changed and water wasn't going one place one time and then the next day it is. Our report indicates, nothing with that condition affects where the water eventually goes that we're using for this watershed design. And what we do is we're looking at where the water goes. We call these the design points. So we evaluate, we figure out what the rate of runoff and the volume is going to those points so we can make sure we don't make it any worse. This plan depicts the proposed condition, but what I did is I kept the existing watersheds on here, and I'll try to just explain this. It might not be clear, but the magenta is the existing condition, and then I use the same colors. That peach color is the proposed condition. So you can see how much smaller the area is that's exiting the site, and these would be the areas that are not going through the proposed stormwater management system. So for the area that's going to Nahant Street, this consists, it's the sidewalk, that's the public sidewalk, the curb cuts, which are in the layout. There's 2 proposed, there's 2 now, and then an area of landscaping in front of the building. So that's what's going to Nahant Street. And I'll walk you through the numbers on that in a little bit. To the west, that was that green color. You can see there's no green anymore. We're gonna capture 100% of that water that is going to the abutting property, and that's gonna stay on site. The cyan color, you can see again the magenta was the original, and really the only area that's exiting the site. It's mostly off the property because portions of this drain into the property now, and then an area of landscaping outside the pavement is the only thing going off. And then the white, which is the middle, that's the entire rest of the site that we're going to contain and keep on the property. And how are we going to do that? So the stormwater management system was designed. So we have the site basically designed as from the curb line in, everything within the site stays on the site. How do we solve any possible water issues that neighbors have experienced over the decades? Well, we just don't let the water leave. So we're going to hold it on site. And the condition of the site now, it's mostly either roofs, pavement, or compacted gravel and fill. There are some areas of lawn near the front, but for the most part, or bedrock. So none of these surfaces are very conducive to absorbing stormwater runoff. Water will hit it, and it tends to just run off. It doesn't go into the ground. So once the product is built, all those conditions, while there is still pavement and buildings in the new condition, the landscape areas are landscaped. It's loam, seeded. They're much more absorbent. And underneath the pavement, we're going to capture the water through catch basins. It's going to be treated. And then underneath the pavement, it is stored in basically open areas that are made. So we've selected a product that's made out of concrete, and these are very open. We use these all the time. I've put thousands of these to the ground over the last 10 to 15 years. But we basically have a large holding area underneath the pavement that is in direct contact, allows stormwater runoff into that good sand and gravel that I mentioned initially that we found during our soil testing. And we can measure how quickly the water absorbs into the ground, and that all happens here. So these bluish purple areas are these underground systems. They're, if you can imagine, just an 8x8 concrete tank that's got an open bottom and it's got a height to it, and that the water will come in, it fills up. We control the rate of release, and this allows water to go back in the ground. And what's great about these, the squares you see is kind of the grid, is we can really shape these in to fit where we know the soil is good, and that's what we've done. And you can also fit them around the site design. In the back of the site, you see they're kind of separated. When we were doing our soil testing, we found some good gravelly sand in the back, and we found some good gravelly sand here, but in between, there's bedrock. So we're going to take advantage of that, and we're going to put the water into the sand and gravel where we can. Everything overflows eventually and goes back out to that existing 12-inch drainage pipe. So all the water stays below ground, it stays in the closed drainage system, and it is mitigated. And I mentioned earlier, we went kind of above and beyond the norms here. The flow rates at all design points are reduced. And when we talk about the reductions, we're looking at a 2-year storm, a 10-year storm, a 25-year storm, and a 100-year storm. And we are using what's called the NRCC storm events, type 3 storms. These have been updated and increased over the last 10 years because we've all observed the increase in rainfall intensities. So we are accounting for that. So the rainfall rates that we're using are in keeping with the current best practices. And we are reducing the rate of runoff where it exits the property everywhere. And at this pipe, which is going to be the primary outlet from the site, we're reducing the rate of runoff that's going to that pipe. And because we've added so much infiltration onto the property with these underground systems, we're actually reducing the volume of runoff that exits the property too. And the only way you reduce volume is that means it's going into the ground. Which is good for a lot of reasons. This will help with downstream flooding in the future, groundwater recharge. Obviously there's additional treatment and renovation of that water as it passes through the soil media. This helps recharge our aquifers and groundwater supplies. So the system also includes treatment, proprietary separators to remove pollutants from the stormwater. All that's documented in the stormwater management report, full compliance with the stormwater management, state stormwater management standards. So quick recap. We're not letting any water exit the property to abutting properties. We're going to capture all of it, and we're going to reduce that rate of runoff to the design points everywhere. And that includes Nahant Street, where the only area really going to Nahant Street is a landscape area, and it's no longer that concentrated runoff from the driveway. There really won't be any noticeable runoff from this area. So if there were any concerns about Nahant Street, this will be mitigated. Finally, I just want to touch on the utilities. Again, we don't have full construction drawings for the building yet. That comes at a later phase. There's quite a bit of work that goes into those, where you're hiring, there's a team of 30 plus professionals that are involved with putting these plans together. But we do have initial ideas of where we want the water and the fire to come in to the system. We would be adding a new hydrant right on the street frontage here. Because there's an interior garage, there would be a sand, gas, and oil separator, as well as your domestic sewer exiting the building. We still have on our checklist to do some CCTV work on the sewer. I got to touch base with Bill on that and go through the extent of that CCTV work. We talked about that earlier in one of our prior meetings. And the same with the stormwater management with that drainage pipe that exits the property. We had taken the camera out to the catch basin. We haven't gone past that. I do expect we'll be continuing to do some CCTV inspection work. And if and the purpose of that is if we do see any defects or issues with the municipal sewer, the project will go in and fix that with whatever method is most appropriate to do so. All right. With that, covered this. I guess Jason was going to present on some of the waivers and zoning stuff. I don't know if you want to pause now for engineering and stick to that, and go back to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, let's take a pause here and see if board members have any questions, comments on the engineering for this. Chip, I saw you go up first.
Yeah, I have a number of questions. Scott, have you done a cut and fill analysis yet on the property? Because to me, this looks like a huge fill job.
It is a fill, but I haven't done a full cut and fill analysis yet, taking into account foundations and what would need to be brought in just for the building anyways for structural. I can certainly do a preliminary takeoff on that. You are correct, it's a fill site. We would look to reuse whatever we can as far as soils on the property, but you will certainly need to bring in structural materials for the building and the pavement construction, as well as your
I assume
stands for utilities.
Okay, so did you do a cross section at all?
I did not have. Yeah, I did see your email. I haven't done an engineering cross section, and I just didn't have time the last few days to get that done for you. But I can certainly look at that. If I could, while I have you, what is the area you're most interested in seeing a cross section of the site?
I'd like to just see the lowest point on the site to the highest point. Some sort of, you can't see my finger, but I've made a perfectly good line on there.
So like from the hut to the back?
Yeah, kind of like that. Just, again, it's the cut fill, it's the amount of trucks that are gonna have to be out on the street.
Right.
I guess one of my questions has been, because of, I think the site's a pretty low site, yet everything is coming up to about the height of Nahant Street. I just didn't know if there was any discussion or look to lower the building anyway, right? One of the things we've been struggling with so much is that it doesn't fit into the neighborhood. So I didn't know if you guys had looked at lowering the building at all, trying to kind of bury that whole parking garage area.
So it's a good question, and yes, we did. The soil conditions are driving a lot of this, right? So we are tied by, well, we have this existing storm sewer which has an elevation to that pipe, and that's fixed. We can't change that.
Okay.
The groundwater level on the property is fixed. We can't change that, and we do actually have to stay above that. So we can't have any infiltration within 2 feet of that. And so we kind of build the site back up to meet that. And when I go through these catch basins at the far ends of the system, these will almost definitely be like a shallow cover catch basin because we're trying to keep it as low as possible. So we're talking like 2 feet or less of cover over the pipes, just to make sure we're keeping everything as low as possible. But yes, it is kind of
So
level.
when you ask what do I want to see, that's what I would want to see in the cross section.
Yep.
Right. Where's our low point? Where's our high point? Where's that pipe that you're ridging on? Where's the water table? All those things in just a cross section, so we can understand why the height has to be what it is.
Sure. All right. That makes sense to
That
me.
would be great. That would be those are my concerns. I mean, Mr. Renaud's far more intelligent than I am when it comes to stormwater, even though we love to debate it sometimes. So he can do all the analysis, but I'm just curious about all those things you just mentioned.
Okay. All right. I can see if I can get something together that will help depict that for you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chip. Joe, your hand was up next.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Scott, for the presentation. Two quick questions. Do you anticipate blasting or chipping on this site? And I'm sorry if you mentioned it earlier, if I missed it.
I don't know which. Obviously there's rock. Both scenarios are possible. I think it's right along that line where it's possibly doable with chipping, but maybe easier and quicker just to pop it out and less nuisance.
Yeah. Well, that's gonna be very worrisome for some of these neighbors just to think about. But so have you even gone down that road? Have you tried to situate this whole snake of a building to try and to avoid that, or is it you're thinking it's 99% sure you're gonna have to do something?
So yes. So part of the grading coming up from Nahant, you can see how the grade comes up. We're going from,
Yeah.
I'm just going to pull up my plan that I can see. I got it next to me here. So I can read these grades for you. So at Nahant Street on that low side, we are sitting at, come on, let's give you a feel for it. We're sitting at elevation 90 plus or minus at Nahant right here. And then we're coming up. We're doing that because this is all bedrock up in here, right? This is all exposed bedrock. So we don't want to cut into that too much. So we're coming up to 99 in this area. So 9 feet coming up, following that kind of topography of the site. And that results in a very minor cut through this area. We got to get just deep enough, instead of keeping the whole thing at 100 and just keeping this all low. We were doing that to minimize our cut into the rock, which is that construction nuisance, you talked about. And that's also why the slab of the building is stepped, so it's lower, and that doesn't affect the elevation of the roof heights. The garage just gets, there's not as much garage clearance in the back half as the front half, and that's what this dashed line is. So we're stepping the building up, and we're actually burying the foundation through portions of this area because I wanted to come up and then we come back down to 95 in the back of the building.
I mean, you can pin and build on top of that, right? But that's if it's too high, then it's too high. So all right. Thank you.
All right, thanks, Joe. Kasumi, I saw your hand next.
Yes. Can you go back to the parking layout plan?
Yes.
The one with you put the colors, nice colors on it.
Yep, that one.
Thank you. So I noticed you moved the parking space for the delivery truck on the east side of the building. I don't know if you've been coordinating with the architectural plan, but the mailbox on the west side of the building.
So those spaces, that's only the moving trucks are temporary, and the property manager would be coordinating that. But the mail truck could park. We expect the mail truck is going to use these when there's not a moving truck there, which is, I don't know what percentage of the time, not very often. Or they can use any of the spaces out front.
Okay.
But yeah, the mailroom is on the west side. You're correct.
Okay, and then for the trash pickups, that happens where the pinch point is. So if the trash truck is there loading all the trucks, no one can actually come into the site and then go back out.
Yeah, there would be, I mean, it's akin to, when they're doing, street pickup and you gotta, they queue up traffic behind them. There would be a temporary nuisance while that's sitting there, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever that is. But that's the spot for it. We wanted to avoid an outside, the outside dumpster condition, which adds more nuisance and noise.
Okay, I'm just wondering because somebody comes in from the west side of the driveway, you don't see the trash truck until you're actually in the driveway, so you're gonna kind of get stuck in there.
Yeah, you're gonna wait. It's like my Tuesday morning commute to work where I get stuck behind the Danvers garbage truck every Tuesday.
Okay, and then on the bottom, the visitor parking spaces. So if I come in as a visitor and then park in one of the spot in the corner, so then if somebody comes in with like the larger pickup truck and then park on the other side of the corner, like where the landscape is, can I still get out from the spot? Because it's like you don't have any extra like extra space at the end of the.
Yeah, so what you're referring to, I'll try to zoom in a little bit so folks can see. What you're referring to is we have a 90-degree,
Right,
parking
yeah,
space to
where
parking
that's
space
it.
situation with a
The
compact,
yeah.
these are compact.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a valid point. I mean, there are plenty of parking lots like this. I can see if we can soften this a little bit to kind of buy a foot or so in each direction. But these spaces will be signed, and there's kind of that situation of, if you're parking and you're blocking a car in because your truck's so big, most of those people are pretty used to driving a big truck and not doing that to people. And certainly there's going to be a call from management or something if somebody is doing that. The compact spaces would be signed as such to deter that. So I can't rule out that it would happen, but I also can't say I think it would be a high probability. It wouldn't be a frequent occurrence, right?
I think especially it's a visitor parking, so it's not assigned to any of the residents, so you don't really know, or the management doesn't really know what who owns those cars, like when it's parked in there. So I think you should have a little bit of extra space.
I can see if I can buy a couple more feet in there. I think there's a little play. I was trying to minimize the ledge cut on the other side. But I'll see if I can squeeze in a couple feet on each one. I had a similar conversation in my office about this.
Okay, and then my last question is the water runoff to the Nahant Street. And then this is something like we commented and Chip commented last meeting that from the architectural shadow studies, like that Nahant Street is gonna be in the shade pretty much like the winter time. And are you expecting like the sidewalk is gonna be all frozen?
Not at all.
Anything like that?
The only water that's getting on that is what falls on it. This will be landscaping in front of the building. So this is a very permeable, planted area, even in the winter if it's frozen. It's a very small area. And to give you some quantities, because I have those here next to me as well, and these are in your stormwater report. So this whole area, and most of the runoff is coming from the sidewalk and the driveway aprons and the street itself. But this whole area in your common storms would be 0.2 cubic feet per second, which is hard to depict, but we're talking about a garden hose or less coming to this corner right here in Nahant. So we're, if we're looking at areas along the sidewalk, this is a very minimal amount of water.
Okay, but that's still enough to make any ice in the shaded area. Are you expecting if something falls on the sidewalk that is going back to the your landscape area, or like just run off to the Nahant Street, the roadside?
Yeah, so the side it would run off towards Nahant Street, and no, I guess I'm not expecting any issues with that because it's such a small area.
Okay, thank you. That's all I had.
Thank you, Kasumi. Mickey, I saw your hand up as well.
Hi, Scott. Mickey Feely. Two quick questions. One is when you're mentioning that, first of all, thank you for all this information. It's very helpful. You would mention when you're talking about signage and some added enhanced signage and wayfinding. You mentioned, and maybe I missed the first part of it, but you said left turn only. Is that correct for the project, or is that a particular area? And
I'm sorry, yeah. So in the garage, so if a car's exiting the garage, we have a reminder here. We want you to take a left and exit back out this way. We don't want you to take a...
Where are you on the plan? Do you have okay, I can see that.
Right here. So that's actually a sign in the garage. So
what you're telling them is it's not, you all have to go left on Nahant Street. This is a garage thing.
It's internal, correct. There's no restrictions on Nahant.
Okay. Can you just walk me through just kind of how flow works around the building for, we touched on a lot of it, like garbage trucks, cars, just emergency vehicles. And I imagine this is going to come up in TAC, but just
Yeah.
kind of just give me a broad overview and go from there.
Sure. So Vanas Associates submitted vehicle turning analysis drawings that depict various turning movements throughout the property, including for the Wakefield fire truck, fire apparatus. So from the west side, this would be your entrance only curb cut. It's 20 feet wide. And we have included, try to zoom in.
And that's the only entrance. I didn't mean to talk over you, but when you say
Nope,
entrance,
there's two. So this isn't, but this is an enter only. We don't want an exit on this.
Okay.
Concerns have been flagged about the sight distance here. You have kind of the crest of the hill. You have a turn in this area. So by eliminating the exiting from here, we eliminate that potential safety concern. We are including, one of the wayfinding signs is we're directing delivery folks to come in here. We do want to promote use of these spaces for deliveries, although we are also signing them on this side. But we're trying to promote your delivery vehicles from coming in this direction, so they're facing in the counterclockwise direction. We have one-way signage here. These are parallel spaces. We angled the space in this area again to promote people to back out in the correct direction. If people are going to go rogue and do their thing and go the wrong way, it's going to be hard for them to do, and it will be uncomfortable for them to do. So we're trying to promote and force, it's the signage breakers, right? You can't tell me which way to go. So we try to engineer the site to deter that as much as possible. So you have handicap parking here. We also included some bike racks on this side. So if you are riding your bike and you come in on this side, you're going through the mailroom, you can park your bike here. As you're coming back around, this is still all one way. We're placing do not enter signage here. One of your turning analysis figures is showing the turn. If you do come in here and you got to turn around, you can use the garage. It's a little wider space. There's also space here just to do a 3-point turn with your ordinary vehicles and exit back out. The garage is 2-directional. Everything in the back is 2-directional, going back out to Nahant Street, again, going counterclockwise in this direction. So we had some directional arrows. You have your stop signage, crosswalk. Your first garage entrance as you come in from the easterly entrance is here. That's the lower garage at elevation 93. This will come up. You have your van handicap parking spaces here, van accessible. Again, more bike storage near the main door. We have our EV charging spaces. We're rewarding people for having EV vehicles by putting them closest to the front door. This is also where we're bringing delivery folks in from this side. We have the parallel spaces on this side. So again, any deliveries are pointing back out to Nahant Street. So we're deterring and minimizing that occurrence of cars going the other way around that are gonna have to turn around. So we're trying to get deliveries and short-term people heading back out in that counterclockwise direction. Everything else is,
I'm sorry.
go ahead, sorry.
No, you go ahead, Scott.
I was just gonna say these are full width aisles, so 24 feet, so they're comfortable. These are for two-way. A lot of the parking is only on one side, so you have some areas where you get double loaded parking, but these will be very comfortable to back out of. Even the compact spaces, which are a little narrower, if a larger car parked in one of those, they're still going to be able to get in and out. We're not doing the compact spaces because we have a narrow aisle. We're doing it to get a little more efficiency on the site. It's just better site design today, best practice to try and minimize your pavement. So I don't know if that answers your question, but
It's very helpful, and I thank you. Snow storage.
Yep.
Whereabouts?
I skipped right over that when I was giving this presentation. I'm gonna walk through it all and hit that at the end, and I forgot. I highlighted the areas in yellow. So we tried to find some obvious push points where, your plow is going to come around and they're going to push here, and they're going to come around and they're going to push here, and they're going to push here, and they're going to come around, and we have a push point here, or they could be coming in from Nahant and they're probably going to push up in this area. This would be tucked up against a ledge outcrop. So this one here would be up against there would be a 4-foot rail on top of this retaining wall. There's a 3-foot plus or minus retaining wall here and a 4-foot fence. And then this back one here is just it's just an open area. Same here. This is up against a fence and which is on top of a retaining wall. So everything's contained and everything's sloped to go back when the snow melts, goes back into the parking area.
That one in the front, I'm concerned about two things. One, sight lines, cars, kids, bikes, and the home there. Did you say there's a retaining wall there, or it just kind of fills in?
That one's open. So there is a retaining wall there now that the current owner built. That retaining wall will be going away as part of the project. It's retaining the site against that property. That's that driveway that ramps up that I was talking about. I can see your concern there. It is set back, so the sight line is measured 14 feet back, so you can see where the stop line is, but the sight line's a little further up than that. So we're clear on that. I can certainly that's probably a candidate to take off. If I were to do that, I can see maybe pushing that back, maybe into this area. We try to capture a little more space.
All right, that would be great. Thank you.
If I may jump in, Jason Panos again, it's not the intent to have permanent snow storage, but to have a contractor come in and truck off the site.
That's helpful.
So at the time when we conclude, we'd be willing to live with a condition in that regard, certainly, because we don't want to impact parking either.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. That's a good point. I mentioned this is the obvious places where the plows will push. So what I meant by that is that this isn't a loader coming in, picking up snow and moving it from one area to the other. That in that situation, yes, it would be removed from the site if needed.
Notwithstanding the fact it doesn't snow anymore. So
Okay, you all set, Mick?
Yep.
Dave, go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I would just add to that to finish that thought. Yeah, typically there'd be an O&M plan that would cover things like that. And can't lose any spaces, of course, and then stuff would have to be trucked off. That's typically part of an operation and maintenance plan, which may come further down the line. But no specific comments, Mr. Chair. I mean, again, I appreciate, Scott, the information is very helpful just to go through this, these details. And I think the other board members raised some valid questions and comments. I think, again, this is an area where, especially with the engineering aspects, we look to our engineering department, Bill Renault and his team, to really give us their input. And I understand we got a memo literally a couple hours before the meeting. Haven't had a chance to go through it. I think you said at the top, Scott, you haven't had a chance to connect with them. So obviously we're going to look for your feedback on that letter and any updates to the plans that might need to come from that, and any discussions that you need to have with them. So again, there are experts in this area, not as much as we look at these and try to absorb as much as we can. They're the ones we look to for that detailed report analysis. And I think they did look at everything that you shared with us. So we'd be looking for that kind of information and feedback. So we'll look for that and appreciate the update you gave tonight.
Thanks, Dave. Chip,
I mean, I know Bill's on the call. I don't know if we want to give him a chance to add anything.
Yeah, I
but
was going to
they
get
may
to.
have time to, but
Yeah.
it's, you're up to him or your Mr. Chair, your discretion. Yeah.
Yeah, let's get through board, and then I don't want to put Bill on the spot. If he wants to say something, he can. If not, we can have him back to respond. So Chip, is your hand still up? Did you have something else, or?
I did, Mr. Chair. I want to know if you want to keep going down the road of parking and all of this, because I have hundreds of questions regarding parking and thought process and all of it, or if you wanted to wait and do that with traffic.
I'd prefer to do site circulation parking with traffic with Bill and the police and the fire here. Because my major concern too, and I'll just flag it, is that west side, there's a lot going on there. Kasumi brought it up. What happens to them if they're pulling trash out and an emergency vehicle's got to get in there? That seems like a major problem to me.
Well, I'll bring up 3 points that I'll bring up again during traffic. And I don't expect to. Unfortunately, I don't think anybody here is plowed, because unless you have an empty building and you're not planning on putting any cars overnight into these spaces, you can't get to any of your snow storage areas. Right? They're all buried by cars being there. So Mr. Panos' Attorney Ponus's comment that in the O&M plan, it has to be to me, this is a total haul from step one, especially if you have cars, if you're occupied. Two is, I don't know why you'd put visitor parking to the farthest point away on the property, not near any door or any entrance. And three, the pinch point seems stupid and crazy to me. So those are my big comments that I'd like to have reviewed at some point, but that's it for now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, if there's no one else, Scott, I had, Mr. Cameron, I had a question about the impervious surface. Can you pull that up? I see it, the stat down there on the left.
Yep.
Do you have those calculations?
Yep. Being stubborn. All right, there we
Yep.
go. Can
I
you,
see it
can you
fine.
read that? Is it zoomed in enough?
Yeah, that's good. So given those percentages and given the context of the neighborhood, even 40Bs have to fit in the context of a neighborhood. I mean, this amount of impervious surface, this lack of landscaping or green space, it's not consistent with anything in the neighborhood. It's not consistent with anything in 90% of the town except for downtown Wakefield, and this is not in downtown Wakefield. In your, for a town like Wakefield, this is a very suburban site plan. I mean, do you have any comment on that? Is that?
From an engineering perspective, civil engineering perspective, I think, the perviousness of the property isn't really changing. It is going to look a lot different. And I say that from the context of it's a contractor yard right now with a high imperviousness. We're talking from a
So let me
stormwater
stop you there.
perspective
So
anyways.
if we have a decrepit site, we should keep the same conditions as we try to make an improvement on it?
No, that's not what I'm saying is from an engineering, I can't I guess my opinion
It's
on
probably
what
an
it
unfair
is, that's
question
not
to you.
really for me to
Yeah.
say. From a civil engineering perspective, what I can say it is a lot better afterwards than what it is now. I guess it's a matter of, I guess, opinion, and it's not my opinion as to whether this is or not. That's, I think, for you guys to determine. But from I guess I can only speak from an engineering perspective on it.
Oh, yeah, probably an unfair question, but still a significant point as far as I'm concerned in terms of the lack of green space, the amount of impervious surface here is significant. So anything else, board members? I was going to ask Mr. Renaud. Bill, I don't want to put you on the spot, so if you don't want to say anything, please don't feel that you have to. But if you want to give some high level points, or you want to weigh in here while we have
yeah, sure. I mean, high level points. I mean, the drainage system. I mean, I think it's a good stat of the first round. We have some technical comments that are in the memo as a starter. Obviously, the TAC will be weighing in on a lot of the issues that you have mentioned, and I can tell you that these are things that we've already been talking about internally. So I'm sure most of those points will come through as part of that meeting. And I mean, I think the snow storage component that Chip talked about, I definitely agree with that point too. So something that we also had highlighted as part of TAC. So that's kind of where I'm at this point. Again, a lot of this is the size of the building. I think comes into a lot of part of where we run into these pinch points and some of these issues that may be able to be easily resolved. I think with as this process goes through. So that's my overarching comment at this point.
Okay, appreciate it. And appreciate the efforts of you and your team on that memo. So, Mr. Cameron, I'm assuming if you haven't received that memo, we'll get that to you. It's 4 pages. It highlights a lot of different issues, some big, some small. But it certainly require your presence back here to answer everything that's brought up in that memo by our subject matter experts in the town. So we will have that expectation. And Mr. Panos, that goes back to my earlier point on scheduling. We still have a lot of very important elements of this project we have to discuss, and there's not a lot of time left, so. Anything else, board members, on the civil and site stuff that Mr. Cameron presented? Seeing none. Mr. Panos, as it relates to the waivers and so forth,
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good use of our time tonight to go through all that personally. I'll ask the board if they disagree, but I want to be respectful of everybody's time here, your team, our board, and obviously the neighbors as well. So,
And, you know, if it pleases the chair, just to kind of check off the box, I can summarize in about 2 minutes what's in there, but it's a 26-page document that's pretty self-explanatory. And it boils down to, if I may, it boils down to really use and dimensions. So the use in the residential, the multifamily use in the residential zone is prohibited. The multifamily use is allowed in the business zone by special permit. So therefore, we're seeking a waiver from that. The dimensions are pretty well laid out in the dimensional zoning table that was provided in the plans and also provided as an addendum to the waiver request. And it's actually also in the PowerPoint if you still want to share a screen. But again, it's all fairly self-explanatory stuff. If you want me to go through it at another time, I'm happy to. But to the extent,
yeah, I don't think we're there yet.
yeah, that's fine. What I would encourage is if you guys can go through it, and if you have any specific questions at a later point, I'm happy to answer that, or comments, or I know, Chair, you indicated there might have been a discrepancy in one of our references to the zoning bylaw. If you catch anything like that, I want to make sure this is as accurate as possible. So, you know, I'll leave it at that.
Yep, and we'll leave it to board members to have some good nighttime reading with that stuff, so.
I'm already asleep. Mr. Chairman, what we've done in the past is just at the end, once the whole project, I think you've been part of that, and I think that's what you're alluding to, is that, you know, there'll be a time that's appropriate to go through all those.
Yeah.
Not
I was going to talk to, I'll talk to Dave too about, just process how he's done the last 40 Bs as chair. So we can do that offline. So with that, anything else that you have to present, Mr. Panos?
No, obviously we're awaiting the technical review memo from Bill, and if you could share that with me as well. I'm not sure if it's coming from the board or if it's going to come directly from Mr. Renaud.
I can email it to you. It's not a big deal. It's a public document. I'll get it to you.
That'd be awesome, because we'll start working on that immediately. Obviously Scott still has some CCTV work to do on utilities. We're going to be meeting with TAC, as you mentioned, on July 26th, so we'll be ready for that. And the other thing I would encourage perhaps is, you mentioned scheduling, getting back on track with using subcommittee meetings to fill in the gaps between meetings, and honing in on specific issues that we can address in the interim and not wait a month to, flesh out certain things, but be prepared for those meetings to say, this is where we've come, this is where we are, this is what we've resolved, this is what's outstanding. Just a thought.
No, take it under advisement. It's just a short 2 weeks between this last meeting and this one with the 4th of July in the middle. So it was a little tough on everybody's schedule. So, all right. Anything else, board members, before I open it up to the public?
Mr. Chair, was there just, unless I missed it, were there some updates on the GLD? Like the transformer, I think, was pointed out, right? That was one question. Distance to the power lines, are we okay there? Like they're okay? the building potentially would be far enough away. That's not an issue. And I think there was another comment. I just don't remember if Scott covered it or we're good there.
No, I was thinking it. I said I would, and I didn't get to that. We're also focused on the stormwater design. We had some email exchanges just today, and I'll forward that over to you. Initial indication is there's no issues with it. There's some appurtenances on the poles now that can be moved outboard. We're not, nothing's jumping out as a red flag. Obviously, there's steps to come down the road with final building design and paying for the design, and there's a lot of all the electric stuff is very detailed and expensive, so it doesn't usually get vetted out this early. But nothing came up in the email as an initial concern. That 10 feet is adequate, and we can meet that with the balconies.
And I'll just add, we will be forwarding you that email correspondence so that you will see, it's not a simple question as to whether or not the proposal meets a certain setback to the electrical appurtenances, because things will have to move a little bit and it's a little more fluid. But to Scott's point, it's all workable within the confines and the context of this project, and the email correspondence, I think, will flesh that out in more detail. And we'll give it to you along with this PowerPoint, by the way, so that you can have that for the record.
Yeah, Dave, the other thing was the lighting plan. They said they weren't ready to roll with that tonight. So
okay,
that was the other thing. That's probably what you're thinking about.
Yep.
All right.
We'll look for that memo and that. Yep. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yep.
With that, are there members of the public here that are here to comment on the case? If so, please use the raised hand function in Zoom.
And Mr. Chair, point of order, can we try to limit the comments to what we heard tonight and not traffic? I think we're getting some of the comments. We hear it, we know it, but we're not talking about traffic yet. We're not talking, so like try to confine, if we can, commentary to what we heard tonight and things that are new and fresh, because we know the stuff that's already been out there. So that's all.
And traffic's
In the
coming.
interest of time. Yeah, in the interest of
and traffic's coming.
Correct.
Okay. Marie?
Hi, Marie Olivera, 216 Nahan Street. So I have a question about compact spaces. Is that something that was just brought in, or have there been compact spaces there all along?
Mr. Cameron, can you answer that?
Yep. We've had compact spaces on the plans since my involvement. We've moved and shifted and adjusted them in this latest design.
So the number of compact spaces has remained the same.
It's slightly changed. There's slightly more on the current plan than the prior.
So when you say slightly more, how many more do you think?
I don't have that number in front of me. I apologize.
If you could just get that for the next meeting, Mr. Cameron. I think we want to be precise in answering these questions.
And how does a compact space differ in size from a normal space? And is the purpose of doing compact spaces, again, make things that much more congested because you continue to have the same number of parking spaces, but many of them are smaller? And, people drive these big SUVs and, aren't running around with these small Toyotas necessarily. So I see that as really complicating the parking issue. What do you think, Scott?
Through the chair, you'd like me to respond?
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
please do.
So there's not a project that I get involved with that we don't incorporate compact parking spaces. Just good engineering practice today. We try to be efficient as possible. And in this case, there's a lot of concern been raised about the quantity of parking spaces and making sure we are providing that on site. And I think the traffic discussion, there will be more conversation about that. But
Okay.
the ratio, you know, what we're providing for compact spaces is certainly ordinary. It's certainly consistent with what we see in other projects like this. And to the question about the sizes, there's a couple different sizes. Some are a little narrower, some are a little narrower and shorter. Typically the compact are all going to be, they're all 8 feet wide. The ones nearest the building are still 18 feet deep. And then the ones on the very exterior are 16 feet deep, which is consistent with a compact parking space, a standard compact space.
Okay, thank you.
Through the chair, I can answer the question as to how many we provide, and it's actually contained in the building summary that was submitted on June 21st. That gives you this cheat sheet, remember I referred to it, of what this development is all about. To answer the question, there are 15 compact spaces proposed. 15 out of 137.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Marie. Next I see Victoria Turner.
Hi, Victoria Turner, 16 Wilson Road. So I have several questions. The first one is about the soil testing. So you said there was a sheen that you assumed to be manganese oxide. Was that actually tested? Because my concern is that there was illegal oil tank removal happening on that site where the fire chief had to get involved. And I have a really hard time believing, with all of that going on, that the sheen is just a naturally occurring thing. So that's my first question.
Through the chair.
Were there any, or
Yep,
Mr.
through the
Condos, were there
chair.
any tests?
Sure, yeah. Sorry. Yeah, so it is a naturally occurring phenomenon. I see it all the time. The tank removal is documented, and I believe we submitted that in a prior submission with the DEP file number and the reporting that it was done, and there isn't any issues with it. So that was submitted, and I guess that's the extent of what I can speak to on that.
Okay, so personally, given the fact that that was happening illegally, that we had to call in the fire chief, that the fumes were so terrible they were coming down into my property, I just really struggle with that. My next question is about the snow, which we've already brought up, that if the cars are parked there, those snow spots are not working. But the one in the back in that cyan color in particular, I have a lot of concern about the runoff you're talking there, because that goes right into my backyard. So I was wondering if anyone had looked at I believe you said it's 29 Nahant Street is technically the property. There is a pipe that goes into those wetlands, as you called them. Those wetlands being their backyard and 1 foot from my backyard. So there is a pipe in there. And I'm wondering if we have discovered where that pipe goes, where it comes from, because I see water gushing out of it all the time. I, in fact, keep it clean. I clear leaves out of it to make sure the water is properly flowing. I don't know who's supposed to be maintaining that. Have you looked into that? Have you had that scoped?
Mr. Cameron?
Yes. Yeah, I'm not clear on which pipe you're referring to. There are several out in that wetland.
Well, then I invite you to come to my backyard and I will show you.
I can
It
do that.
is coming right out of the ledge. It's large, it comes right out, and then it flows into a small river that goes under my property.
Is it a 30-inch black pipe?
I believe so.
Yeah. So that one's beyond the scope of what we're impacting. That's not part of what we're looking at. We're addressing everything.
You have to look at that pipe. You have to look at that pipe.
Excuse me, Ms. Scardello.
I'm sorry, but that pipe, this is critical. That pipe.
I know
I'm
you
out of
just
turn
will.
and I
If you,
apologize.
yeah, we got to keep
I'm
some
sorry.
order
I'll
here.
shut up. Never mind. Okay.
You feel free to ask a question when it's your turn. I don't want to shut off the question, but we have to maintain some order here. So,
Oh, sorry.
Mr. Cameron, if you want to finish that, are you stating that it's not part of the scope of this project, or it's not related to this project?
Yeah, so There is a very distinct, large HDPE pipe that discharges out of a slope. It goes into a channel. It follows the channel through the wetland, and then it exits into another concrete pipe. There are several pipes that come into this area. There's another metal pipe that I observed. But it's all well beyond our site. That's all downstream of us. So the water, it would have to go uphill quite a ways for this project to have any effect on that. We're addressing all the runoff at our lot line and reducing, everything's reduced at the lot line. So we're mitigating it before it gets to this pipe.
So I'm just confused about how the water would have to flow uphill. I'm talking about the water coming from your site down into that area. The water you showed that there is still storm runoff coming down from there into that property. So I just don't understand why that's not part of the scope here. That's just not.
It was that was part of it in the calculations. The calculations show all that the town's engineer, Mr. Reynolds, reviewed.
I also want to address the way you talk about the property as is. I think we need to look at the fact that 4 years ago, when I purchased my property, that entire lot was covered with mature trees, and those have all been cut down in preparation for this build. So the drainage that you're looking at is already different than it was last year, and I don't know why that's not being addressed. So that's a concern I have. I can tell you
Victoria, can you hold on? I see Mr. Renault with his hand up.
Oh, sorry.
We have that comment in our comment letter.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And I do agree with Scott's point, though, about the pipe that goes through your lot. That's kind of downstream of them, and they're reducing the amount of water going towards you. So that I think he's correct with everything he said on that, just so you know.
Okay, I do appreciate the town. Excuse me. I do appreciate the town speaking up. And then lastly, just the way we're talking about squeezing a couple of feet here and moving this here and inching it along just speaks to how enormous this project is and how it does not fit. The fact that we're trying to squeeze an extra foot here, an extra foot here in order to make traffic flow properly, in order to make water removal safe, it's just too much. And you talk about trucking off the snow, which does seem to be the only option, but then you're adding more trucks onto Nahant Street. I won't go further onto that because that's traffic, but the project is just too big. This is insane. I apologize. I'm done.
No need to apologize. Thank you for attending. Thanks for your comments. One of the Janas, either Carl or Allison.
Hi, good evening. That's Carl Jana calling. I'm on 21 Hart Street, and then there's a couple of points I wanted to reiterate. Just that the overall size obviously is ridiculous. Having to go through all of this to put something in that is oversized, it seems like so out of touch. I'm wondering about I know they're talking about best engineering practice in the NRCC storm events, and this is going to be raised now, obviously. What's the pitch coming down from the driveway down into the Nahant Street? And in the length of the pit and the length of the driveways because there's two of them, obviously. I know Scott said that it's, akin to a hose running off. What is the pitch and what is the length of that driveway, both driveways?
Mr. Cameron, can you answer that?
Sure. Yeah. So all the slopes on the site are engineered to be at 5% or less, especially near the entrances where it really flattens out. We're also part of the construction will include installation of catch basins at that easterly driveway curb cut on Nahant Street. So any water coming down, the driveway would be crowned like any road. There would be a gutter at a curb, and then that goes to a catch basin, and that's slightly below the sidewalk. So we have kind of like a low spot before it gets to the street. The same with the westerly curb cut. Where the water actually from Nahant, it actually slopes back into the site. So I think when I was describing it before, we're capturing all the water on site, managing it on site. We're minimizing anything running off.
Obviously, that's a safety issue coming down with the water, but again, that's the traffic. On the infiltration systems, on those, in this parking lot where it's not a resident, in theory, in reality, it's not a residential, it's a commercial spot with the amount of space there. Are there concerns with cars, leaking oil, gas, electric batteries? I know, they get the special electric charging spaces for them up front. How is that contained?
Mr. Cameron?
Yep. So we account for all this. This is why all the focus is on paved areas. We don't have the same concerns about roof runoff for the most part. Cars aren't parking there. So the whole basis of our treatment of the stormwater is on capturing, removing these pollutants from the runoff before it gets to those systems. So what measures are involved? Well, obviously there's best practice. Just if you observe a car leaking, fix it, right? If it is a bad leak, you clean that up on the surface. Trash, debris, litter, all these things. So that's property management.
So
The first place where water would get into the system is your catch basins. The catch basins are equipped, the newer catch basins, you won't see these on older ones, but newer ones are equipped with a hood. So the water just doesn't go straight into a pipe. There's actually a hood over this. So any of those oils that float at the surface can't get down. They stay at the surface, and you're getting the water that's cleaner in the middle of the catch basin. There's also a 4-foot sump on these. So anything that's heavy will sink to the bottom and it captures that. Before it gets to the infiltration system, it then goes through another treatment, which is, excuse me, it's a hydrodynamic separation process. We're basically using gravity and we're further separating out both solids and floatables. So your oils, hydrocarbons, things like that from the stormwater before it gets to the infiltration system. So we have to, we're focusing on the majority of your pollutants and stormwater runoff come from your first flush. So, right, we're not worried about the tail end of a big storm event. Most of the pollutants have run off the stormwater in that first 1/4 inch, 1/8 inch of stormwater. That's your highest concentration. So we focus and engineer everything to get that first flush cleaned up before it goes in. And then there's protocols in the system. So if you do get surges, you're not washing all that out. It kind of bypasses with the clean water. And then the infiltration systems themselves, when I mentioned we're engineering off of the groundwater table, these are up 2 feet above the groundwater. The soil that's beneath these is actually our best method of capturing any final polishing of the water before it goes back into the ground. And these are 2008 was the last iteration of the stormwater code. We've actually tried to, and we're trying to accommodate the newer version, which isn't even official yet. And these practices go back to 1997 was the original stormwater handbook where we said. So this has been in practice for a long time. The systems and technologies and what we've been using for a long time, and they have good track records. They're durable. We're minimizing, use of plastics and other materials to build these. We're using concrete and durable materials, and it's for that reason. We don't want these failing. We want these lasting for 100 years.
Yeah, so it's still kind of big for a residential neighborhood. The testing that was done on, was there the building inside? Was there testing done on that? Is that a basement in that building, or is it on slab? Because obviously that was honing, so I'm sure there were hydraulics, oils, and other machinery inside there. Was that tested inside the building?
So I can't speak to the testing. That's by a licensed site professional, and that's outside of my purview. But what I can say is that there is a process that's required. You can't finance a project without having a licensed site professional go through and complete their work under the mass contingency plan. Typically, that does include identifying floor drains. There's processes that you go through for that. The building is a slab. It is a slab. But that is a process. That is a next step process that has to occur. And there's quite a bit of regulation protocols behind that.
And obviously it's not engineering, but the safety of there's going to be a huge dumpster. There's a lot of people. That's a huge building, oversized. The amount of trash generated there. And, I mean, God for there's neighbors that basically going to be looking at a dumpster in front of behind a fenced-in area. So rodent control is going to be an issue there as well. And And I feel bad for the people that, you know, I'm one of them. All that trash, it's just, it's ridiculous. That's all I have for this evening. I appreciate your time.
All right, thank you. Karen McMaster?
Hi, Karen McMaster, 25 Nahant Street. I guess what really concerns me is the chipping or the blasting. I think you know how close all the houses are to all those people. How do you prevent, and I know there's a lot of ways to do it, how do you guarantee these people are not going to have damage to their home? And what happens if
Karen-
there is damage to their
So
home?
Karen, the Wakefield Fire Department would be involved in any blasting, and there's
Okay.
protocols in place. So that, in terms of a means and methods of construction, I'd like to hold off on that discussion.
Okay,
But, you know, they can do things like pre-construction surveys, so they can take video of people's properties, get that to each of the neighbors as well, and then they can do a post work, you know, so if there was some damage done, there's some video evidence of it. But all those means and methods, the fire department, town departments are involved in that type of thing.
okay, I understand. Again, I thank you for the engineer for coming out and saying everything he said. I think he has a large task to do what he has to do. If the project was smaller, I think things would move a lot smoother, would be a lot easier, and make his job a lot easier too. Because it just seems like we're still trying to cram a lot of stuff into an area, and I still have a lot of safety concerns with the project even before it's built. I mean, construction alone is a huge safety concern. So I'll leave it at that, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Conway?
All right, thanks for your time. Just got a question for Scott. On the southeast corner of the proposed site, you have the compact car areas, two of them, one to the east side and one to the rear south. And in the corner, there's that snow area that you proposed. Okay. My question is there, in behind the compact or along the back side of those compact spaces along the the east side, the 3 or 4 that's there, there's a black line that I saw on your diagram there. And I think you referred to that earlier as a retaining wall. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, could you give me the height of that again?
Yep. So if it my memory serves me, there's
Can
a
you pull that?
fence.
Can you pull it up?
Yep. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
All right, thank you.
Um,
Yeah, down in that corner.
this area here. So there's you have
Yeah.
a wood stockade fence. It looks to be about 6 feet high around that
Okay.
property.
Okay, Scott, that stockade fence is mine.
Correct. Right.
Okay.
That's down. I'm just trying to.
Okay, so along
area.
that fence, is that what you're showing in the yellow?
That's where your fence is in the yellow. Is that the approximate
Yeah.
location of the fence? Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
just
So
to
this
the west,
line-
just to the west of that, there's that, it looks, I'm assuming it's a concrete wall that starts where the end of the ledge ends.
Yeah.
To the north. Then
Yeah.
it runs back to the south. It runs to that southeast corner. If that's what you're showing me, if that is what I understand is the retaining wall, I'm interested in the height of that retaining wall.
Yep. So the grades in this area, your existing 96 around that corner, it drops off into your yard a little bit.
Right.
But the fence is about the elevation of the bottom of the fence looks like it's about where the this property grade is at. It's as high as it can be.
Okay,
96, and then the wall here is 98. So in this spot, so we're going from 96 to 98. And in
okay,
this
so
spot,
my question is, how tall is the wall?
2 to 4 feet.
Okay, and is there anything on top of the wall?
There would be a 4-foot pedestrian fence. So pretty darn close to what your stockade fence is now on that corner.
Okay, what would be the gap, about the gap between my fence and that, the back end of the east side of that retaining wall?
In that area, there's about 3 feet. So your concern being trash and things getting caught between the two?
Yeah, or would I be able to get behind the retaining wall to service or repair or work on my fence?
Yeah, yes, there's space there. There's 3 feet there to get behind that. I kept
Okay.
that spacing off of it. Yep.
Okay, so then that retaining wall continues on down beyond the stockade fence deeper into the south, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And is there in that particular area of the compact spaces, is there any catch basins or anything to catch any of the water in that particular area?
So we're bringing the water away. So it's going away. So I don't know if you can see that arrow. So everything is pitched.
The red arrow?
Yep.
Okay.
So everything's pitched away. So we don't, it's the edge of the parking, those compact spaces is the high spot.
Okay.
I'm just drawing some arrows so you kind of see the flow, where the water will go.
All right. So it gets over in the back of the building to the south. This is the first time I've actually seen this, and I've been to most all the meetings. Is that a parking garage under that section of the building as well?
Correct. Yep.
Okay, so now that you got a parking garage running along the Nahant Street end, it's called, for my way to say, it'll be east to west, and then to the front of the building would be the north, and to the rear. So there's 2 garages. What'll be on top of the back section? Is it going to be 4 stories on top of that garage, or 5, or what? What's the plan?
Ooh, I don't have the Stephanie's on here. That is a 5-story section there.
On top of the garage? Is it the garage then plus 4 or 5 stories on? Is it 4 stories on top of the garage? Or
I don't
5
have, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't have the architectural plans with me here. Stefano wasn't brought to this meeting on that.
Mr. Conway, I'll email you. I'll take a look.
I can tell you, if I may, it's 4 stories above the garage at the back side and 3 stories above the garage on the Nahant Street side.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Panos. You answered my question.
You're welcome.
One other question on that rear garage on the south. As I look at this diagram, is that the only entrance and exit to that particular section of the garage on the south end? Only one entrance and exit?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, Scott, if you could stop sharing.
Yep.
Anybody else? Hearing seeing none, I'm going to close public comment. Back to the board. Pleasure of the board.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, what's our punch list, right? Our next meeting's August 14th, right?
Yep.
So there's going to be at least a TAC meeting in there. I don't know if they'll be done.
There's a TAC meeting on the 26th.
Right.
That Mr. Cameron and this team need to respond to the DPW memo as well. So that's another meeting. I don't want to promise the traffic meeting on the 14th, because just because TAC meets on the 26th, we have to respect that some people might be taking vacations. I don't know if they're going to be able to resolve every issue and then have their memo ready by the 14th. So that might require another meeting. So Mr. Panos, I'll take you up on your offer. I think we need to meet in the subcommittee meeting and develop a schedule for this. And I think you're going to have to seriously consider an extension here, because I believe we're at September 11th right now, and I don't think we're going to resolve all these matters before September 11th. I'm going by memory. I don't have your last extension in front of me. But I still think there's some important elements of this project that we need to go over. And then during the meantime too, I can, I'll be at the meeting, TAC meeting on the 26th, so that'll inform some things as well.
So if I may, Mr. Chair, propose that we maybe schedule a subcommittee meeting after the TAC, and that'll give us some time to absorb the comments from engineering.
Yeah,
and get a better sense on, you know, what the issues are that we'll need to address among the different disciplines.
Yep, that sounds right to me too.
Okay.
So with that, I think we're ready to continue this matter.
And we're just going to continue it because we'll deal with an extension next time? Potentially.
Yeah.
So just continuing. All right,
So
Mr. Chair. Yeah.
Because what I'd like to do at that subcommittee meeting is create a schedule for the next, however long it's going to take here to get through all these issues. I don't
Okay.
want to do it on the fly here.
No, understood. Okay. So with that, Mr. Chair, I move that we continue this hearing to our August 14th, 2024 meeting.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing, seeing none, regular voting members, Dave,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Mickey.
Yes.
I vote yes. Matters continued to the 14th. I will connect with you at the 26th TAC meeting, Mr. Panos.
Thank
Okay,
you very much.
Thanks, everyone.
thank you. Thank you for the presentation.
Sure thing.
You're welcome.
Next up, 32 Nahant Street LLC. Which revolving attorney do we have tonight?
Mr. Chairman, it's me again, Attorney Christopher Alphin, covering for Paul Haverty, who's driving his daughter for a basketball camp somewhere in Virginia tonight. I think on the schedule, we're talking about traffic. We have our traffic guys here, and tonight is going to be all about traffic, if it pleases the board.
Yes, we've been waiting to do this, so Mr. Thornton can give a presentation. Mr. Renault is here to represent the Traffic Advisory Committee. So let's get right into it.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is it okay if I share my screen?
Yeah, please do.
Okay. Trust you can see that.
Yep.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. For the record, Scott Thornton with Vanessa and Associates. We conducted the traffic study for the 32 Nahant Street project, and I just have a few slides to go over what our findings were, and then obviously the board and the public have questions. I'll be here to do my best to answer them. Just walking you through some of the site plans. Obviously, we're talking about 32A and 36 Nahant Streets that represent three residences, two driveways out onto Nahant Street, one driveway in this location, other driveway in this location. The proposed conditions, and I know you've seen these plans from Chris Barage's office last time, I think, in fact. The project has been downsized to 24 units. And along with that, some of the changes that were made to be responsive to the towns and to the TAC and the public's concerns include the addition of delivery space for for delivery vehicles located towards the rear of the site. 4 visitor spaces have been added, and I think Chris went over this at the last meeting. Also 2 areas for snow storage. The snow storage near the front of the site has been pulled back so as not to interfere with any sight lines for traffic exiting the driveway. And then there's a snow storage area to the rear of the site. In terms of the traffic study scope, we looked at 6 intersections. We looked at daily volume and speed counts conducted over a 48-hour period. We typically would do for a residential development, we would do a traffic counts during the weekday, 7 to 9 and 4 to 6 p.m. To capture those 2 peak hours, the morning peak hour and the evening peak hour. This traffic study included counts done to capture the school dismissal period, as well as the school drop-off period, as well as the evening commuter peak hour. So we did 7 to 9 and 2 to 6 to capture that traffic. We also looked at truck volumes on Nahant Street, looked at potential cut-through traffic using Bennett Street and Traverse Street. We reviewed site distances, crash data, did a deep dive on crash data with the Wakefield Police Department. We also included 4 background development projects, including the previous project that was up in front of you earlier tonight. We also included the Farm Street, Hemlock Street, and Nahant Street roundabout project as a future roadway improvement project after getting plans from the town engineer. So this slide shows the study area. Again, you can see Nahant Street located about a little over 500 feet away from the Main Street intersection. We also went out and looked at Traverse Street, Middlesex Street, Hart Street intersections with Nahant all the way out to the end of Nahant, where it intersects with Farm Street and Hemlock Road. In terms of the trip generation, I thought it would be important to highlight where the project started and where it's at now. So initially, we did a traffic study, which has been submitted and reviewed by TAC. That's dated February of 2024. In the time since then, the traffic or the development has been downsized, first from 32 units to 26 units, and then from 26 units to 24 units. So that represents a 25% reduction from the level that was analyzed in the traffic study. So, any of the impacts, and the impacts are relatively minor when you're looking at these types of peak hour traffic generation, when you're looking at 9 trips during the morning peak hour and during the evening peak hour. These are really minimal and don't really, it's tough to measure that level of traffic increase because, based on the volume that's on Nahant Street as it is currently and with the other background projects, there's really a minor effect due to this project. And this does not account for the traffic generated by the 3 existing units, homes that are part of the project. But I thought it would be important to point out that the project has been downsized and has a real effect on the traffic generation. In terms of the overall results, the project represents obviously a minimal increase in commuter hour traffic levels. We feel it's a good use for the area, a residential use that's 3 minutes from a bus stop on Main Street and less than 13 minutes from Wakefield Station for the commuter rail. No change in intersection operations or level of service at any of the intersections reviewed. With the latest change, the project exceeds the town bylaw for parking requirements. And with a traffic volume increase of between 0.1 and 0.3% during the peak hours, we're not expecting the, as I mentioned, that type of effect or that type of increase to be noticed. We did receive, we had meetings with the TAC, and we received their comment letter on June 26th, and they had a number of comments, and I tried to break them into the major issue areas. But I think there was comments on delivery vehicle parking, and concerns about what happens under existing conditions. And so the applicant directed the engineer to downsize the development and increase the number of parking spaces for visitors and for delivery vehicles to address that concern. There was a concern about snow storage. As I mentioned, there's been 2 separate areas that were provided. In terms of emergency vehicles, we did, as I mentioned, we did a deep dive on the crash data with the Wakefield Police Department, and I do acknowledge his concerns. We feel that even though when there's emergencies, and you have 3 vehicles that can show up, you have the police department, ambulance, and fire apparatus. The drive aisle and the visitor spaces can accommodate 2 of the 3 of those emergency vehicles. I think fire trucks are going to be a challenge no matter where the site is, to accommodate them. But we feel that there's more space on this development to accommodate those types of emergency vehicles than a lot of other projects. In terms of traffic operations, TAC noted that the project is not expected, and it's a quote, project is not expected to have a significant impact on intersection operations. And again, that was before the project was downsized 25%. At one point, Mr. Renault had indicated adding a do not block marking in front of the driveway on Nahant Street, which the applicant is willing to do, and would be happy to add those markings if it's determined to be reasonable. There were some comments about the vehicle speeds and how they might be affected or artificially low by, and so they might be affected by the queues going back from Main Street. In this case, the speed data was collected in the area between, I think near Hart Street. So it was about 1,500 feet from the site, and that's pretty much free flow conditions there. So we wouldn't think it would be affected by the vehicle queues extending back from Main Street. And so really the seemed like the point of the comment letter was raising these existing deficiencies and that aren't a part of the project. And the applicant in turn has incorporated this feedback and reduced the size of the project, provided a higher parking ratio for the residents, and added delivery and vehicle spaces in an effort to try to address those concerns that have been made. That's really all I have for the traffic. I know that there's a lot of questions and comments, and I can go into more detail if you have any questions, but I'll be happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could stop sharing.
Sure.
Board members, what I think I'd like to do is pull up the TAC's memo and have Mr. Renault walk through it, because I think it will answer many of our questions and comments, or address many of the comments that we have as a board. How do folks feel about that?
Sure.
That's fine. One of my comments was going to be about the letter, and the information in it, so I would agree. If you want to pull it up and go through it, then we can make sure we get it all out there.
Yeah, Bill, do you have it, or do you want me to pull it up?
Either way, whatever's easier for you.
Let's see if I get it right here.
I have it open if it's easier.
Yeah, go ahead.
So you're seeing the memo now?
Yeah, if you could just blow it up a little bit, it's kind of small. We got it up there though.
Let me try that.
I just want members of the public to be able to see it as well.
You know what? Let me try this. I got the dual screen thing going here. Let me put it on the bigger screen.
Ms. Bartz, we're gonna go through the board's comments. We'll get to public comment in a little bit.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think the TAC broke most of these into, I would say, really three main buckets. First one regarding the site plan, obviously the parking that's provided, visitor spaces being probably the primary one, with the small amount of them and the number of units. We see that as a real concern, obviously, because there's no other place to park and to put them. So, the closest street 600 plus feet away, for somebody to go and park if they're coming to visit, that's not really usable. I really didn't hear that get addressed. Site distance piece, I think you've addressed most of that. There's some discussion about the snow being removed too that could potentially impact that. And then obviously the queuing back of the cars would be another area where site distance could be an issue. Scott, you may be able to address that with the box if you're widening that out a little bit more so that the site distance, coming for folks taking the left out, that would be easier to see. That might be something to look at to make some modifications. Delivery vehicles is a big one from us because I don't believe we had a way for the delivery vehicles really to turn around on site is one of the comments that was there. And then having it obviously impede traffic flow if it's not on, not into the site and actually stopping on, on the hunt because it's so narrow there. I mean, that just is something that can't happen. So whatever we need to do to make that not be a thing, I think that has to be addressed in some way. Let's see, the other piece was on emergency vehicle access and how those engines would have an ability to, maneuver and to get out. I don't think you provide us any turning templates on that stuff. That would be something I think that would be important, especially in ambulance and that type of thing, clearly, because obviously we would have, more calls from ambulances to the site in all likelihood. But that's something I think that would be pretty critical. Traffic operations, I think you covered that, Scott, in your presentation. Basically that's saying that the queuing does go past the site drive. We've kind of talked about that. We don't see a huge impact to either side with traffic. So that sort of makes sense with what you reported today. And then obviously just the discussions on speed and what we see on there from a public safety standpoint. I think all that kind of rolls back into, how the site gets accessed and then making sure that there's no potential for vehicles to really be parking on Nahant Street. I want to say that's really the biggie. Yeah. So the last one being public safety, talking about, legal parking, delivery vehicles, kind of just summarizing all of that. I don't know about vehicle speeds and off-peak hours. That's not something I think that really is something you can control per se, but it is a concern and something that we want to make sure, it doesn't become an issue for folks leaving the site. And then, the fire truck access, like I mentioned, and then the medical calls potentially blocking the hunt if they can't get onto the site. So, I mean, I think those big pieces need to be addressed somehow, with some additional information to the TAC to have that resolved.
No, I appreciate it, Bill, because I think the last sentence there is the most important sentence.
Without doubt, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we're seeing this to be a negative impact and safety for the area based on those comments not being addressed. So if there's a way you can at least pick off some of those, Scott, I think that would be pretty important.
Okay, thank you, Bill. I saw a couple board member hands go up. If you could stop sharing, Bill, we can pop it back up if we got to.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Chip, I think I saw your hand first, followed by Dave. Chip, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. Yeah, to me, when we get one of these memos, I will say I've been on the board for, I don't know, a couple years. And I've never seen a TAC review that says at the bottom of it that this design will impact as being a negative safety impact for the area. Never seen it. So the fact that, even Mr. Thornton in his presentation said, well, yeah, fire trucks are always going to have trouble with mobility. Well, you know what? They don't. In all our non-40B projects, fire trucks don't have trouble with mobility because we can make sure that they don't. Again, I think it just comes down to the fact that this site is too compact, too much. It's just not right for the area. And if it's going to be a safety issue, that to me, that one line says it all. We can talk about the turn radiuses and we can talk about this, but until somebody can tell me the project's not going to be a safety concern, I have a real hard time getting behind it. And that all comes down to size and type of project that it is for the space and on this street. I mean, this street is a tough street and we know it, but the street's not changing. These projects have to change. So Bill, I appreciate your and TAC's time. But without a reduction in size and a real change in the ability to get around this building with emergency vehicles, I don't see that last line changing. And to me, that's the most important part of this whole TAC memo. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Chip. Dave, I saw your hand up.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and thanks, Scott, for your information. Yeah. Yeah, again, same concerns with the memo. Yeah, I get, the small impact to traffic with these size projects. We see them around town. You don't just see a lot of cars going in and out, generally speaking. I'm less concerned with that overall than I really am, and I honed in on access and circulation for emergency vehicles. That really hit me hard. While the proposed site layout allows for fire truck access to the side and rear, there is not sufficient space for a fire truck to turn around within the site. The fire chief is concerned about the proposed site layout and their ability to navigate the site with an engine. Fire trucks that enter the site would need to back out of the site driveway on an on. This could result in the need for larger trucks to park on the street in front of the building when responding to calls. With 24 units in the building, this could happen frequently, which will impede traffic in both directions. The police department noted they receive frequent medical calls from apartment complexes in the town. Each of these calls requires a fire truck, an ambulance, and a police car. With the lack of maneuverability on the site, medical calls will frequently result in blockages on non-street. Red flag. Big red flag. And that really hit me hard. And I just, in all fairness and respect to you, Scott, you kind of just, that was one row in your table and you kind of glossed over it. This is a big deal. Big deal. So I would agree with Chip. I'm going to have a tough time getting behind this until there's really some significant changes that address the overall safety of this project as proposed on the site. That's all I have for right now, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Dave. Anybody else on the board?
Excuse me, Tom.
Yeah, sure, Mickey, go ahead.
Thank you. Real quick, I have a tough time getting behind because it is enormously large. The safety thing is a killer. It's also a safe harbor, so we don't have to approve it because it's not safe. I don't see me raising my hand with a letter like that ever. That's all. Thank you.
No, I think the point's well taken, and I think the emergency access and slight maneuverability for those emergency vehicles it's been. I'm with Dave. That's unbelievably alarming. I also don't want to just dismiss the fact of the distance that a visitor would have to go to, is 600 yards away. It's there's not enough parking, and these delivery trucks are just going to pull up with that many units. They are just going to pull up on the curb. In my mind, they're not going to go in deep into the site where there isn't a ton of space to turn around and back into some space in some far corner of the site. It's not going to happen. They're just going to pull up on the curb right on the Han Street. And we know the queuing there is bad. I don't care if there's a block out there. One of the neighbors brought this up before too. If you're taking a left out of that site where the queuing's going on, you're asking for trouble. You know, you're not gonna, you know, the way the sun sets there, you know, the sun will be in your eye. You'll be trying to take a left and you won't really be able to see the car coming from Main Street, North Ave area. There's some serious problems with this, and they're all related to safety, and all the safety issues are related to the size of the project. To me, it's that simple. It's that there's a direct line there. So, any other board members?
Mr. Chair, if I can just make one general comment, and to our newer members, that even though they're not voting members, if they have opinions or feelings, there's certainly more, they're able to weigh them in. If they think that they can't make a comment because they're not voting members, that's not the case, right? So Krista and Greg, feel free to chime in if you guys feel any way or have any thoughts. And not to put you on the spot, but that's all I want to say.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I
Assume he's certainly gotten over the hump.
Yeah.
I like that. Still
She doesn't hold back anymore.
all of the material, and on these two, I do feel a little like I have to, but I appreciate it, and I will. You'll hear my voice, I promise.
All right, anybody else on the board? Mr. Thornton, before I go to the public, do you want to respond to any, or Mr. Alphen, do you want to respond to anything that either came from Mr. Renault, from the TAC memo, or from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I have a few responses. You know, I understand the point about the fire trucks. You know, I think that the fire trucks, you know, they have to, I do understand the concern about them being able to access the site. You know, we can look at some auto turn templates to show that they, if they do pull into the site, they can back out. It's similar to what they would do, you know, for some other locations. For, you know, they have to back into the stations. Understand that the streets that they're on, that the stations are on, are not the same level of activity as the Hahn Street, but it is something that happens, and it happens in other municipalities as well. In terms of the visitor parking, you know, the standard, I get that the nearest parking is a ways away, that's available for other people who aren't residents, who are just visiting the site. You know, the typical rule of thumb is 10% of parking for visitors. That's what we have. We have 4 spaces out of the 42. You know, I think that if we can, I think we can show that the delivery vehicles can turn around on site, that ambulances and cruisers could turn around on site. I think there's sufficient space for them to do that, so that they don't have to back out. You know, the delivery vehicles, we can, you know, we can move that delivery space around if it's if need be, to make it a little closer to the doorway. That's something that we can look at. But I think that, you know, a lot of the concerns that have been raised are based on existing issues, and again, we're trying to address those to the extent that we can.
I understand that, Mr. Thornton, but you know, the site movement is not an existing issue. You're creating that issue. So I'd be very interested in the ambulance thing that you talked about, not just the fire truck, because if an ambulance goes in there and God forbid someone's in there having a medical emergency, how's the ambulance, what, they got to slow down, back out while this person's in the back having a medical emergency? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. You know, I think, you know, anyway, I don't want to beat the dead horse. We have significant concerns. You've heard them. And I do want to hammer that point. Not all of these are existing problems. You're creating some of them with the size of the project and the site plan for the project. And again, as I said, it all goes back to the size. Your site plan is what it is because of the size of the project. So, all right. Anything else, Mr. Thornton or Mr. Alphen, before I go to the public?
No, other than we appreciate the conversation and ultimately what we will be doing is writing a response letter to Bill's letter and going by each point and giving a written response to each one of his report points to try to make Bill as happy as possible.
It's not about making Bill happy. It's about making the residents of Wakefield and this neighborhood safe.
That's correct. You're absolutely correct.
And the police department and the fire department.
That's correct.
It's
Nothing personal, Bill.
It's collective. It's not, Bill's an important guy, but
Yeah, I totally agree with all of you. I'm a little man on the totem pole for this stuff.
All right, if there's no other comments, I am going to go to the public. Seeing none from the board. Audra Bartz, forgive the pronunciation if it's wrong. You're
Thank you.
muted.
Thank
Could
you,
you
Mr.
just give your address? Yeah, could you just give your address, please?
9 Nahant Street. My property is on Nahant Street, but also the back of my property is on Franklin Street. I have a severe concern that all the focus on traffic and impact is on Nahant, but the surrounding streets are not included. I've emailed the Traffic Advisory Committee to look specifically at the impact on surrounding streets. So the back of my property, my driveway, is on Franklin Street. Already, there have been accidents on Franklin Street because people don't want to sit at the traffic at the light leading up to Nahant Street, heading west on Nahant. So they cut off, they think they're cutting off the light, which is an illegal entrance onto Franklin Street. But there's no way to capture that because no one's keeping track of that. But my daughter has been hit on Franklin Street of someone coming up illegally on Franklin. Also, people then try to hit off the light and come up on Franklin going east. And people are flying down. I know this is a traffic issue for the next meeting, but it hasn't been addressed. Even though I've emailed the committee, I've gotten no response. So people are flying down Franklin Street east to head off that busy light and the traffic on Nahant Street. So I would implore that the traffic issue assessment include not just Nahant Street, not just heading into this new property, but also the surrounding streets, including Franklin. My property is literally kitty corner to this new proposed property. When I do yard work on my front lawn, I have to be on Nahant Street, and I literally risk my life. I put out a cone to be on the wall on Nahant Street trying to weed my garden. And it's like a miracle I haven't been hit already because people are flying down Nahant Street. The traffic is incredible. So to think that 26 more units of households are going to be literally feet away from me, I can't say anything, but my risk is increased exponentially. I don't have a traffic study to say that, but I'm imploring that people be like, in common sense, the numbers don't add up in terms of public safety. The people walking by, running by, riding bikes, it's frightening on Nahant Street already. Our wall on the front, so my wall is on Nahant Street, literally across the street from this new proposed, it's already been hit. And then I have to hire insurance companies and hire contractors to come and prepare the wall that a car has hit the wall and demolished. So it is personal for me. It is frustrating. It is not safe. It's not okay. I don't understand, other than greed, why a property can't be put into that property across the street. That's like a townhouse. Just a few doors down, a townhouse was put in. That's lovely. It fits the neighborhood, but not a huge apartment building. We can't afford it. Thank you for listening. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I see Paula Gardella.
Hi. Hi, I
Hi,
just
good-
want to, 10 Wilson Road. And I just want to reiterate, it's so important for everybody to understand, we've said it a million times, Nahant Street is unique. the builder said it themselves. They haven't seen anything like this. This is a unique street. It's disastrous. Once again, the guardrail right between Birch and Stark has been hit. Just 2 weeks ago, I see the cones up again there, another accident right on that curve. The road is unique. It has to be factored in. And honestly, this is a disaster waiting to happen. If people can't see that, they've got rocks in their heads. I'm sorry. It's a disaster waiting to happen. Read the TSA memo. It's not safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Karen McMaster.
Oh, Karen McMaster, 25 Nahant. So I'm kind of diagonal on the other side of this property. I look at people, it's not the traffic that the actual development's gonna cause, it's from the people living there, it's all the additional stuff. So no one's raised the concern of the dumpster. I've heard there's gonna be a dumpster at this site. How is the dumpster gonna get down there? Are they gonna back in? Are they gonna pull in? Are they gonna turn around? I mean, most dumpsters back into a property. So now you're talking about a dumpster blocking off 2 lanes of traffic to back down at least once a week to do this. It could be more than that. That's a huge concern. The street is unique, like Paula said, in many ways, but it's unique because this is a residential neighborhood. It is not a neighborhood to have a complex. It doesn't fit. It doesn't work. We're already have safety concerns as it is now. This is going to add to it no matter what it is. I mean, dumpsters, delivery trucks, more flow of traffic. It's not going to work. It needs to be smaller. It needs to be townhouses. It needs to be rethought. And the safety of thinking of ambulances going there and having somebody have a hard time trying to get out. What if it's during peak hours when it's blocked? Do you think everybody's going to back up and let somebody out of there? You can put a road blocking thing there or whatever else. We see all over town. Nobody obeys by those. Nobody listens to the rules. When people are in traffic, they get angry. They don't care about anybody else, and it's disastrous. So it is greed. You could have put it, you could have been building by now if you just put a few townhouses there and walked away, but we're doing 40B. It doesn't belong and it should not be built. Thank you.
Thank you. Carl and Allison Jana.
Good evening, Carl Jana. As I watched the presentation, I must have heard at least 3 times that it was downsized 25%. I think I even seen it in the presentation itself, downsized 25%, as if, we should be coming to you with bended knee and head bowed, thanking you for not making it supersized. We're just going to make it supersized. The safety of this building is already going to impact the street worse than what it already is. Let's not pretend that Nahant Street isn't already a problem. It's a huge problem. And adding all these units and all these vehicles into it is just going to make it worse. It already is a disaster. It's just waiting for something. Things have already happened. As a parent of my son that got hit just feet away from that building itself is a huge concern to me for safety. It was in a crosswalk by a delivery vehicle, and you add how many more deliveries to this? It's an enormous problem. Vehicles are going to double park right on Nahant Street. Vehicles are going to pull up onto the sidewalk just so they can run in for the quick second and drop off a package. And directly, if I'm not mistaken, I believe directly across the street, there's not even another sidewalk. So it's not like you can say, oh, go on the other side of the street and use the sidewalk there to do it. You can't do it. You have so many vehicles going up and down the street to the high school, to the middle school, crossroads, through and out. The street is a major venue. And to put this into it just adds, as somebody said, a recipe for disaster. It already is a disaster. And I appreciate your time. It's a huge safety.
Thank you. Victoria Turner.
Hi, I don't have much different to say than what everyone else is saying, but I really think Audra is completely correct when she talks about the surrounding streets. When you plug into Google Maps how to get from the high school side of Nahant Street down onto Main Street, it takes you up Birch Hill and then down Charles or Summer to then make a left onto Main Street. And if that's what Google Maps is telling you to do, that's what people are going to do to avoid that light. And we really need to consider those streets along with Franklin and Traverse and all those other ones that are going to be affected. So that's the first thing. The other thing is I just don't see how, like, put aside emergency vehicles, that's a whole nother issue. I don't even see how they're going to exit this property, the people who live there. Because turning one way, you're going to end up in that queue. People are not going to let you onto that street to get in front of you going towards the light. And then the other way, you're cutting across the queue. It just feels really dangerous. I already will not walk my kids that way because I do not feel safe on that road with them. And it's just going to make it so much worse. And there's no green space added in. There's no turnaround for the emergency vehicles. It's just silly. Make it smaller. Thank you.
Thank you. Chris Cummings?
I am at 239 Nahant Street, 10 Raven Road, and all I wanted to say was that, yes, the traffic is already unbearable, and you don't even have that building that's being built on Foundry Street online yet, and the traffic that that's going to generate. It's just too much for this street, and I just agree with what everyone previously has said. It's just between this development and the other one, it's too much for this narrow, windy street to handle. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Conway?
Yeah, I agree with all the previous speakers about cars, delivery trucks parking on the sidewalk at this particular site and the other proposed one down the street. The other thing that hasn't been talked about is the winter time. The last couple of years we've been very fortunate not to have a lot of plowable snow, and living down in the Nahant Street area for over 35 years, when we do have a measurable amount of snow, and we have the school buses and everything else, when the plows come down, they push it back, push it off the road, it narrows the road. So it makes it worse. And there's another thing, people say in the good weather, the delivery trucks and things would be parking straddling the sidewalk on either one of the projects to do their deliveries or take care of the services they need. But the wintertime, sooner or later, it's going to snow again, and we're going to have a problem there. I do agree with one of the previous speakers that said a lot of the traffic that doesn't want to wait for the light that's going west towards the North Avenue on Nahant Street, it takes a left, and like the previous speaker said, at 39 Nahant, yeah, they go the wrong way up Franklin Street I call it against the grain. If not, they take the left and go south on Birch Hill, and they turn right, particularly a number of them, will go down Summer Street. You can go down Summer Street any time of the day, 24 hours a day. If you get down Summer Street, there's cars parked now on both sides of the street, okay? And it's a job getting through there on a good day without a backup at the light. And all you're going to do with either or both of these developments is funnel or channelize all these people that need to want to visit either project to park on these places, and they're going to leave their cars in. It's going to be a bigger problem than it already is. But the wintertime makes the road narrower. I had brought up on the other project about the traffic from the two schools that we're building up there. The population of the schools, the student population of both schools is going to increase, like it or not, quite a bit. I don't know the exact numbers, but it's going to go up 500,000 per school, okay? So you say the students is one population, but also the faculty, the services to those schools, that's going to happen. That's going to cause a lot more delivery trucks, a lot more school buses. I had said at one of the previous meetings, a lot of the people in that particular section of Nahant Street, a lot of the kids that go to the vocational school come from the Woburn area, they come from Stoneham, the Winchester, and the buses, and their own personal vehicles when they're leaving or coming to and from school, use Nahant Street. It's the main access to that those two schools. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Michael Solis. You're muted. If you could unmute and give me your name and address, please.
How's that?
Yep, I can hear you now. Can you give me your name and address, please?
Michael Celeste, 26 Nahant Street.
Go ahead, please.
Another thing that gets me about this building here is that it seems like there's so many single bedroom in the building where you have a school at the end of each end of the hut. You would think that there'd be more families, and across the street from me, there's families. There's 2 babies next to me. There's next to me, there's 3 middle school kids. And so it's more of a family type thing. You have 8 single bedrooms. That means you're gonna have at least 8 cars, where if you had a 2-3 bedroom, you'd have a couple young parents getting their children to move in with them, and they'd be right here, and they would tend to, I don't want to say but understand the traffic more around here. So that's all I wanted to say. I think that if you just cut down the 8 bedrooms and make everything smaller and more neighborly with parents and kids running around with a little green space, I think everything would be better for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Next hand that I see up is M. Nelting.
Yes,
Can you
hello.
give me your name?
Yes, I will.
Can you give me?
Yeah, name and address. I'm aware. Maureen Nelting, 100 Nahant Street.
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'm sorry. I wasn't sure if you had heard me. I live at 100 Nahant Street. I've lived here about 8 years. I will agree with everyone that spoke before me that either lives on Franklin, Nahant, or any street that's very close to that. Nahant is extremely narrow, extremely a winding road. It clearly curbs are not the greatest, and neither are sidewalks. I do understand because that is going to be fixed at some point in the next, I think, 25, 26. I noted it on something Bill Renault had sent out at some point. So that will be an excellent thing when that does happen. The other issue is trucks on both at the top, I should say, Main and Nahant, and at Farm and Nahant. There is signage on both the beginning and end of that street about, I don't know if I think it's a weight limit, but I can't remember. Basically, no large truck should be going down Nahant Street. They should be going on Water Street. But I live in Nahant, and I've seen 18-wheelers on this street. You know, not a lot, not like every day, but I've seen them on this street. I see trucks on this street. There needs to be either more signage or more education. I don't know how you do that to people, you know, to truckers that maybe don't know the area. The other thing, there should be more speed limit signs on this street. There's 2 20-mile-an-hour speed limits between, I think it's Stark and whatever this next street is. The next speed limit is all the way down on Nahant towards Farm, just beyond Catherine or Kathleen Street, I believe it is. And you can't even see it because it's covered by someone that planted arborvitae. And so you can't even see the street sign. Then going towards the westbound side.
Well, Maureen, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if we could focus on the traffic in this site, you know, everybody on the board knows that there's some significant issues on there, but this project team they're not responsible for the number of speed limit signs. They're not responsible for enforcing trucks. I understand that this would increase traffic and so forth, so that is a concern, but we could kind of stick to this project.
Okay, like I said, I mean, I pretty much have said my say. I mean, clearly, I think there's going to be an issue at 32, which everyone has said anyway, so no sense repeating, but basically, people trying to get out of that, I'm gonna call it development, you know, taking a left-hand turn is gonna be dangerous. Taking a right, depending on the time of day, it's, as I'm sure most of you know, there's cars backed up and queuing. And I think that's pretty much all I need to say, but thank you.
No, thank you. I appreciate you attending and speaking up. Next hand up, I see Cheryl Drews.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you for the board for putting in such long hours. The project site to me, I used to be a visiting nurse, so I'd have to park in the visiting parking spaces. And if I called 911 and the fire department and everybody showed up, I'd never be able to get out. I don't understand why there aren't at least one entrance and one exit to go around the building. It scares me to death to think that people who come in to visit may get stuck there and not know for how long they're gonna be stuck there. I think the modification of the building sounds great, but I don't think the footprint changed. They may have lowered the size of the apartment building, apartment numbers, but the footprint has stayed the same. I think the footprint needs to change so that there's more room to get around the building and to have more green space. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. Next up, I see Wan Jianyi.
Yeah, Wan Jun from 35 Nahal Street, right across this this project. So I don't want to reiterate all the public's concerns, but because I agree with all of them, but I don't see the majority of the TAC's concerns have been addressed in the correct way. So I like to see another chart that how you accommodate all the big vehicles, like they said. The second, when you say the visitors parking is already 20% of the total space, which is based on the rest of them can be accommodated by the street parking, but that is not the case for the house street. So there must be the cases that the sidewalk is used for the parking. So yeah, that's all. I think the whole project need to be reconsidered. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? I'm seeing none. Back to the board, pleasure of the board.
Well, Mr. Chair, I think hopefully the applicant team's heard all this commentary loud and clear, and I would look for their feedback at the next meeting, what they would consider changing. We've talked about it many times, the size of the project, the lack of green space, obviously the safety concerns. Either they're going to do something about it and we're going to see some significant change, or we're not, and we'll see where it goes from there. But I really look forward to that next meeting. It sounds like that's where the next big conversation needs to happen with whatever, reviewing the TAC memo, the responses. They said, maybe updating some things, and we see where the rest of it goes. I mean, all the rest is down the line. Lighting, landscaping, all the rest of it is just further down the road, right? But we just got to get through this one way or another. So that's where I'm at. And I assume we're just going to continue to August and see where things stand.
Yep, Mr. Alphen, I think your team,
Yeah.
I think your team also needs to take a look at the 180 days and when it expires. I believe it's also scheduled on September 11th. I don't have that in front of me, but that's my latest recollection. I'm not looking to for an answer tonight, but it's certainly something you folks need to consider. But to Dave's point, I think the first and foremost given tonight is that you owe TAC a response. And to your point, you said you'd go point by point. That would be good to see. You've heard loud and clear from both the board and the members of the public, and it's been a pretty consistent message.
Agreed, understood.
Great. Anyone else on the board before we continue this matter?
No, I would just add that, again, in addition to TAC, maybe reach out to the police and fire again, just collectively making sure all of the concerns are addressed in some form or fashion. Either changes are made that satisfy their concerns or some other alternatives are come up with. But again, it's coming through the TAC letter, but it's just making sure all the relevant parties are discussions are had with all the relevant parties.
Yep.
Yep, thank you.
All right, with that, I think motion to continue would be in order here.
Mr.
Oh,
Chair, I
and
move
Bill,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
sorry. I
So
just
my
want to
notes,
thank Bill Reynolds for hanging in there with us and for all your work on the TAC. I didn't want to let it go without saying thank you. So,
nice to see you, Bill. Thanks for coming.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you, Dave, but I didn't.
No, always sorry. I was going to say, my notes also said we extended it through September 11th as well. But at this time, I'll make a motion that we continue this hearing to our August 14, 2024 meeting.
Seconded.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none, regular voting members, Dave,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Mickey.
Yes.
I vote yes. Matters continued. Thank you for your presentation, gentlemen.
Thank you.
All right, next up. We're on to new hearings. Case 25-1. De Silva Corporation, 380 to 382 Main Street.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. If I may proceed.
Yeah, Brian, you're getting a taste of your own medicine. You're usually on these long ones.
It's all right. It's all part of it. For the record,
He's multitasking. He's
Yeah.
multitasking.
Yeah.
For the record, Attorney Brian McGrail representing the applicant, Roger De Silva Corporation. Didn't say Roger is on the Zoom call with me. She's the principal of the entity applicant for this request before the board. Property location is 380-382 Main Street. I'm just going to share my screen quickly to orient the board. This is the property where the old Kuman School was, that's no longer there. So that's the space that we're talking about right next to Dollar Tree. Just to give you a reference. To refresh the board's memory, the site plan requirement was waived by the board on this proposal at a prior meeting. And this is a request for a special permit for a daycare center. I want to point out, and it's in the application that we filed, that notwithstanding the fact that Mass General Laws 40A Section 3, the Dover Amendment, provides that no zoning ordinance or bylaw shall prohibit or require a special permit for the use of land or structures or the expansion of existing structures for the primary, accessory, or incidental purpose of operating a child care facility, which is the equivalent of a daycare center as defined in our bylaw. Our section 190.23 of the bylaw requires a special permit for that use. And notwithstanding the protection afforded by the Dover Amendment to a daycare center,
No idea.
because of the conflicting language of the bylaw is a belt and suspenders, we apply for a special permit. We could go about it a different way and appeal the building inspector, but we just think it's an easier process to apply for the special permit. But I think with all due respect to the board, and I think you do recognize this, that your review process on this because of the Dover Amendment is somewhat limited. And we also stated that in submitting the application, we reserve the right that, we didn't make a waiver of any other rights that we may have. So I just wanted to point that out to the board. But in any event, what we're proposing here is new, unique, and different, and it's a needed service to the downtown business district. The existing downtown business district will benefit from this because it will provide a service, a needed service to the people that work in downtown. Will now have a daycare facility that they can be right near and have their kids nearby. This is the business district, so people work there, and now they have an opportunity to have their kids right with them and near them. It will also benefit the businesses there just from the foot traffic. Because, as you know, with daycares, there's going to be drop off, it's going to be pickup. And when people do that, especially the pickup later in the day, they're going to naturally frequent the businesses downtown and perhaps the restaurants or takeout food, ice cream when they pick the kids up. So, you know, it really is gonna bring a new group of people to the downtown business area, which is a good thing. It's the town planner, our new town planner, Samantha Elliott, submitted a memo to the board very late today. And she actually points out that this proposal hits on some of the key goals of the Wakefield Envision. In part, what she states in her letter, you know, goal 2 of that envision is welcome and support residents in different life stages and is inviting to people of all backgrounds. She says the proposed use meets goal 2 by supporting a wider age range than what is currently being served in the downtown commercial district, aiding in those who live and work in the downtown Wakefield district, just like I had stated. Goal 4 in Envision is to improve its business districts with more services, leisure, retail, job opportunities, and pedestrian amenities. And Samantha says, the use improves the business district goal 4 by offering a service that is not currently offered in the downtown Main Street commercial business district, as well as adding additional job opportunities and pedestrian amenities to the area, as it can be accessed without requiring a car from the surrounding area. And goal 7 is reduce car dependency by leveraging its commuter rails and other creative transportation innovations to support shops and residents. And Samantha states, further, it meets goal 7 by offering a service that does not require the use of a car and can support those who commute via public transit in the area. So people that want to commute using public transit into Wakefield now can walk with their kids to a daycare facility right near where they work.
Brian, who's that letter from?
That letter is from Samantha Elliott, our new senior town planner. And that was submitted to your board late this afternoon. So just pointing out that, you know, the positives on this. And that's, you know, and that's from our town planner. So.
Okay, well, we haven't seen that letter though, so.
Well, I just read it to you.
I have a copy.
It's in your
Okay.
file. And, you know, basically the other thing about this, it's going to have a very low impact on parking during the day, because once people drop off their kids, they don't leave their car there, they take them away. If they even take their car to drop them off, a lot might walk from surrounding neighborhoods on their way to the rail station, or utilize the public transportation. But it's not going to tie up any parking of significance, except for the employees, which I'll get to in a minute, during the day. As far as the operation goes, the drop-off is anywhere between 7:45 in the morning to 8:30 in the morning. And the pickup is between 5 and 5:45. I can tell you, I am in the downtown district at those times, somewhat on a regular basis. There's spaces available, especially in the morning. The banks aren't open at that hour. There's really not a lot of activity down. None of the stores are really open. So there's plenty of parking in back of this building or on the street for people to park and drop their kids off quickly and get out of there. And the same thing goes at the 5:45 range. I don't think there's as much available parking at those hours as in the morning, but I did go down there for the past couple of days, and I can say there were multiple spaces available on Main Street, and really in the back parking lot near the public safety building. There were quite a few where, you know, people might tend to park because they can just walk their kids around the building and in the front door when they come up. As far as parking for employees is concerned, the closest we have in our parking calculations is a school. You know, that's kind of what you go by. And the requirement is for this use, because there's no, these children certainly are not of driving age. So that doesn't factor into the calculation. So it's 2 per 3 employees. And didn't say plans on having 9 employees, 9 or 10. So that would be 6 parking spaces required. She is telling me that she knows right off the bat that a number of her employees are going to use public transportation or they're going to walk. But that's a very low number. As you know, under our zoning bylaw, anything in the business district requiring 4 or less is exempt. And then also, as part of the Dover Amendment, 48 Section 3, from the high school project and projects that we've had under the Dover Amendment, that you can't implement requirements or conditions, such as parking, that would be unreasonable. So the fact that none of the businesses virtually have any parking downtown, I think it would be unreasonable to say you can't do this because you don't meet the parking requirement. Then when you look at it on our special permit standards, which I'd just like to go through quickly. I think this hits on all of the relevant notes. Specifically, 1, the requested use is listed in the table of use regulations requiring a special permit. That's for sure. 2, the requested use is essential and or desirable to public convenience or welfare. We've heard from our planner on that. 3, the requested use will not create or add undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. I would proffer that is met. 4, the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal system for such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or in any other area of town will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, and general welfare. This is an existing building. There's certainly not going to be a lot of utilities used by the children. The requested use, number 5, the requested use will not impair the integrity, character of the district or adjoining districts or be detrimental to public health, convenience, or welfare. I certainly don't think that is the case. It will be nice to have kids, energy, families brought down to the downtown business district. And lastly, number 6, the requested use will not by its addition to the neighborhood cause an excess of that particular use that could be detrimental to the character of the neighborhood. And I think that standard is met also. So I would respectfully suggest that when you factor in that this is a real positive thing for the area, with some significant benefits as I've laid out, by the fact that it's a Dover Amendment protected use for a reason, because there's a need for it. And some of the comments that are in the town planner's memo, I would respectfully request your approval. And we're happy to answer any questions, sir.
Okay, with that, Brian, I have the letter from the planner dated June 8th that's in the file.
Yeah, that's it. I got it today. Yeah.
Oh, okay. So just a couple things though. Brian did a good job of covering she has a lot of positive things to say for sure. At the end of the letter, she's just got some questions here. Her question would like clarification. I'll pick up and drop off for those that may be driving would be handled, as well as proposed parking for patrons and employees. And then makes a note that while no site, she wants to make sure that any signs meet the criteria laid forth in signage overlay.
Yep.
Would like additional information on where the children will play outside if they're able to. And additionally, should the front window need to be shielded for privacy for the kids, they're asking that maintain its visual appearance of a storefront through the utilization of privacy film or other interior reversible means. I also have a letter here from the fire chief dated June 28th. Department has the following concerns regarding the proposal. A determination needs to be made regarding the requirement for an automatic fire sprinkler system in the building due to the age of the children that will be participating in the daycare center. The building inspector should examine this proposal and determine whether such a change of occupancy would trigger the installation of an automatic fire sprinkler system. An approved system of carbon monoxide detectors will be required to be installed and monitored inside the daycare center. He also has a question: how will customers access this daycare for pickup and drop off of children? Will the daycare center be located on the first floor? If not, Is there an adequate second means of egress for the proposed daycare? These concerns need to be addressed before the department approves the addition of a daycare center in this building. Thank you. So there's some things there, Brian. Do you have a copy of that letter?
I didn't get that one, but I'm sure Gail will send it to me, so that's fine.
Some of it's just questions for Ben on code. And
I've already talked to Captain Shinny on a lot of those issues.
Okay.
That maybe Chief
Okay.
Sullivan isn't aware of, so.
All right. I just wanted the board to hear those as well, because I know some folks probably have some questions. Kasumi, see your hand up?
Yes, I think I asked this Brian when this first came in, but is there any plans to make outside play area like a playground? Because I think the closest one is by the lake, and that's really far to walk for this age group kids.
Yeah,
I don't assume they're gonna drive then to the lake.
no, they're gonna utilize the upper common, walk the kids down when it's appropriate.
But that's really far though for like
Not
3,
really. I
4,
mean,
5, 6-year-old.
So I have a daycare center with me, and a lot of times what they use is they use the carriage, they use the kind of the group carriages.
Yeah, the group. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's options that they have to do that. But at this age group, when you look at the weather in New England, sometimes it's not, people talk about, it's important to get them outside, but there's limited opportunity sometimes, because you're certainly not going to do it in the winter time. And then
like sometime like today, I don't think they want to have kids
No.
going all the way to the lake.
Yeah, yeah. So, that is their plan, that they'll utilize the common. And, like I said, I don't think it's a bad thing for the business district to have, child activity down there. I think it's a good thing, to bring kids down there. We've had some problems in the downtown area, so, bring some younger people down to change the flavor a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just wondering, it seems a little far to go, but
There's really no place on site to create anything like that. There's just no room.
Okay, thank you, Kasumi. Dave, I saw your hand up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Brian, through you, how many students can this building accommodate? What's the owner thinking of volume of kids potentially?
Thinking the max, Dave, would be 45.
45.
Correct.
Like from the get-go, or like working up to 45?
We'll have to work up to it if it ever got to that level, but that's the max that could be accommodated.
And they are anticipating their proof from the state to potentially.
Well, the way it works is the state requires town approval before they can go for their state license.
Okay.
So, didn't say, are you on the call here? Can you unmute yourself for a minute? Didn't say.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, didn't say. How are you?
Good. How are
Good.
you?
I'm correct with that. Didn't say maximum of 45, right?
Yes, it's between 40 to 45 based
Yeah.
on.
And did you want to add anything to what was asked about the outdoor and your thoughts on that? Maybe you could, you're probably more equipped to talk about that than I am, but Kasumi.
Yeah, sure. So the state requires us to take the kids out every day, at least for 1 hour. So I already tried to walk from the building to the lake. It takes only 8 minutes. For the little ones, we're going to use like stroller and carriage, but for the older ones, we're gonna walk, because it's good for them. And for the toddlers too, the one who's already like can walk properly, they will also be walking on the rope to the lake. It only takes 8 minutes to, probably the younger one will take like 10 minutes. And it's good for the motor, for the physical, for them to walk. And in the winter time, when there is not possible for us to play in the lake, we're going for a neighborhood walk, something like that.
Right, and I'm correct, right? You need your permitting from the town before you can be permitted from the state.
Oh yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we will need that permit from the town before we can process with the licensing from the state.
Okay, well, I had that same concern. I wanted to get an idea of the number of the kids we're talking about here. So you're potentially, I'm just hearing this right, potentially at some point having 40 to 45 kids walking and being carted up to the common every day, 8 to 10 minutes, both each way. I see it as a public safety thing, a safety thing for them. As much oversight as you can give them. There's a lot of traffic on Main Street and you're going to be crossing a major street to get them to the common. So I just have concerns. Every other daycare I think we've dealt with in town has had their own playground on site. So it's unique in that way. It is, it is a downtown business, and I just wanted to better understand here. How many kids? Yes, I had similar questions and concerns about the playground and their safety. Where are these kids, Brian? You mentioned kids from local businesses might be using this, commuters coming to Wakefield and using the service. I think you had stated up front, is that the vision here?
Well, part of the vision is that people that, let's say somebody works in the savings bank and they need daycare. So it's real practical that they would use a facility like this because it's across the street from where they work, or the cooperative bank, or some of the office buildings downtown, or, so, somebody that commutes, that they, that they take the train to Boston, they walk to the train, they walk their kid to the daycare, and then they walk back and pick them up on the way home when they get off the train. So,
okay. Well,
it-
again, I took the cars, the pickup and drop off. There's no queuing here, right? You're right in the downtown. You got 45 kids, that's 45 cars, right? Figure one parent or one family per kid. Maybe there's two if they're similar ages, but it's a lot of cars. It's a lot of cars and potentially commuters. Again, it's hard to know the mix. I just, it's a concern for me, public safety wise. I know we can't mandate parking with any of the town businesses. We give generally variances on parking for employees. I'm not so as concerned about that as I am how the parents are going to queue up here. It's hard to know in advance how many are going to drive, how many are going to commute and walk up from local businesses or from wherever they're coming from. Just as a practical matter, it just sounds iffy to me that that's going to work and not create a problem downtown with traffic. So I have concerns about that, the number of kids, where they're coming from, the pickup and drop off driving, the use of the common as the only way to get them outside. I'm kind of hinging on paragraph 3, the requested use will not create or add undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. And I look at the students and the children here as the pedestrians in question. I'm having a tough time getting my mind past that requirement. So that's where my mind's at. I know the Dover Amendment comes into play here, but you've applied for a special permit and we have to be satisfied that we think it meets all the prongs. I'm having a tough time with that prong, I'll be honest with you. So I'll defer to other board members for now, but I'm just letting you know where I'm thinking right now.
All right, thanks, Dave. Chip?
Yeah, so when I first heard about this with Brian, I thought to myself, this is the craziest thing I've ever heard about. And what I have found is, like, when you go to buy a car and you pick out your model, you then all of a sudden see all the same models on the road. Well, I work in Wellesley, Weston, Natick. Wellesley has 3 daycare centers in downtown Wellesley. Natick has 1 in downtown Natick. Weston has 1 in downtown Weston. I was shocked because I didn't it's Bubbling Brooks preschool, and I've seen it in the morning. I've seen it at pickup. It works. We have to get through our preconceived notion of what daycare used to be and understand that this world and people are doing different things. And I thought it was crazy to begin with as well. And then I looked around and just happened to see all these other uses that have happened in storefronts in downtowns that have had trouble filling storefronts. And it works. It makes sense. It's active. I've seen the strollers that go down to the different commons in town. Wellesley actually takes it over to Wellesley College. It's about a little longer walk than it would be here. And I think that the pickup and drop off will happen. It will work. I don't think everything can be perfectly planned, and I'm totally for this. I think it would be a great addition to downtown.
Okay, Greg?
Okay. Thanks, Brian. So I just want to understand this. So the building right now has no sprinkler system, and the plan would be to add it. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't think we have to, Greg. That was my discussion with the captain. So we'll clarify that with the fire chief, but that's more of a building code issue than a ZBA issue. That's something we're gonna have to rectify before we get our occupancy permit there.
Okay.
Sorry, Greg, I should have given you the long end when I said you get to talk to Ben about the code issues. Ben's obviously the building inspector in town, so I was pointing Brian over there. Joe?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I guess I'm on with Chip on this one. We just approved a building across the street with new housing. Now, obviously, they haven't built it yet. It's a ways down the road, but that's a good opportunity right there for people to send their daycare right across the street. And also the parking. I guess the parking doesn't bother me that much either. No matter what store you're putting in there, people are going to come and go. And it was already a school. It wasn't a school, but it was a learning center. So people coming and going already. So it's kind of a swap, I would say. So yeah, I'm for this.
But keep in mind, Joe and Chip, 8 to 10 kids or 15 kids at Kumon. I don't know how many are there at the same time. 45 kids, 45 families, 45 cars. Yeah, there might be a few commuters. Just think about the volume. That's all. That's the part that concerns me, not 8 or 10 or 12. You know what I'm saying? And some might be in the area. I'm having a tough time with the volume potentially and where they're coming from.
Well, the other thing too, though, you need to have one chaperone per 10 kids. Is that what it is? I forget what the law is. So I'm assuming when you're taking 45 kids to the park, you'll have 10 chaperones? Is that how it works?
Could be 9 or 10 employees. So yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, guys, this whole Dover thing is, we gotta make up our mind. Do we want to have them come through the special permit and maybe shape it a little bit, or do we want to just get rolled by Dover? Right, so I think we got to figure that part out. Because if we turn it down, I don't see how it doesn't happen anyway because of Dover. So
Brian, what happens if we did?
It's coming back with Dover. I'm being honest with you. This is the avenue I chose.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
Well, it means that basically, with all due respect, you can't deny it. Because it's exempt from zoning.
So if this board did vote to deny the special permit, you would reapply under the Dover Amendment and get what you want anyway. Essentially. I mean,
They're working through the issue for me. So
yeah. So Dave, that's what I'm saying.
I think you know how I operate. I don't operate that way. I try to work things through, but the bottom line is, yeah, you're right. If it doesn't get approved, it can come back under the Dover Amendment. And in essence, I read you the statute. The statute says you cannot deny it. You could not prohibit it. A zoning bylaw cannot prohibit it. So we need a permit just for the state. So the easier path for us is to just get the special permit in for this business. But my client's committed to this site. She's got a lease. We can't go away. So yeah, we'll be back. We don't have a choice. I'm being honest with you. And the 45 is a goal, or a max, I should say. And businesses tend to regulate themselves. So if parking is a pain in the morning and people can't drop off, guess what? They're not going to go there. They're going to find another daycare where they can park. That's how kind of businesses self-regulate. But I can tell you, you're not gonna have an issue in the morning. I used to go to Honeydew Donuts downtown all the time. Don't forget, at that time of the morning, you have trucks downtown because they're delivering to the restaurants and they're parking vertical in some of those spaces. There's plenty of room downtown in the morning. And this afternoon I went down, there were out on Main Street, there were at 5:30, there were like six spaces on Main Street, and there were multiple spaces in the public safety parking lot that were open, multiple. In the side street, Princess Street, as you go down, wide open on parking. So it's really the time of day. And don't forget, a benefit of this too is you put another business in there, you put offices in there or something, you're gonna have parking spaces taken up all day long by people that work there. So in essence, it might be, there's concern that you're raising about the drop off and pickup, but the benefit of it is that you're not gonna have cars that are gonna be parked there all day long because these kids don't take cars. People leave.
Ryan, quick question. I'm sorry, who am I interrupting?
No, go ahead. No, Mickey.
Square footage per child, per state regulations. Is that where the 45 comes from?
Didn't say, can you answer that? How you get to the 45 number? That's a good question, Mike. I don't know the answer.
So the total square footage for the building is 2,400, if I'm not mistaken. Each child must get 35 square footage. So yeah, the building is pretty big, but I'm not because we still have to, make rooms and make enough for the furniture stuff. So yeah, the maximum probably between 40 to 45.
Now that would be 68 if it was 35. That's 68 children.
I don't think I'm gonna get approved for that.
No.
Yeah.
And the next thing is, what's to the left and right of you? I know I have in my head, but
Dollar Tree, Mike. And hang on, I can tell you right now. Let me bring the screen up again to give you a look.
I'm just thinking if there's expansion space at some point for a playground.
There you go, Mike.
Okay, what's that? Is that Leaf and Ginger? Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
and this is where some of these businesses can benefit. And that's what I think that the planner was talking about. There's nothing wrong with, I don't know if you've been to downtown lately, but as a resident, there's nothing wrong with bringing young families down there.
well, I'm all for that. And this town,
And that's what you're doing. You're bringing some life downtown. And some young families that are going to be there. And at the end of the day, hey, let's pick up the child and let's go out to dinner at Sabatino's. Let's grab a bite or let's grab takeout or so.
Yeah. Hook or crook, this downtown needs 100 spaces at some point. or we're just going to do this. Just saying, it's not my purview anyway.
And this is where, there was parking all available here today, and then out back. This is the town parking lot out back.
Yeah.
Behind it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, anybody else? If not, I will open it up to the public. Are there members of the public here to testify on this matter? If so, please use the raise hand function in Zoom. Seeing, hearing none, back to the board. And that's what I would say.
One question, Tom, that I didn't ask. We didn't discuss signage.
Right. That was, the planner brought that up.
Yeah, and didn't say his intent is to comply with the bylaw. Which allows a 15 square foot sign by right. And if she has to do something else, we'll be back for a special permit. That will be a separate application with the board.
I guess, Brian, I'd even like to control signage because even if she does it within the 15 foot, I'd like to know what's going up, and there's no real review board anymore.
No.
Right this moment.
Yeah.
So I don't want to screw up downtown. We've worked too hard working for downtown to become nice signage, so
Yeah, Dinsey, can
I'd
you,
like to have review of that.
okay, and I don't have a problem with that, Chip, but let me just ask her if I can, Mr. Chair, maybe Dinsey has an idea what she's thinking about. Dinsey, any thoughts on signage? And what the name is gonna be, Dinsey?
Oh yeah, it's gonna be Happy Munchkins Learning Center. So I do have the sign. I mean the sign. Is it okay if I share?
Is it okay if she shares, Dave, so she can give you a thought? I'm
Chip
sorry,
or
Tom.
Dave, who wanted to see the sign? Yeah, go ahead.
It's where is it? So, yeah. 1 second. Okay. It's the sign is gonna be like this. So this is the sign that we're going to be using.
How's that gonna be attached, Mr. Ratcher?
Brian, we don't, you
don't
know what I'm talking about, Brian. This is lovely, but it
Yeah.
doesn't tell us.
Yeah, so it didn't say what the board is talking about is they want to just put a condition that they get to review and approve the material of the sign. And you know, I think the design is fine, but they want,
Size, placement, all of that.
yeah. So you're working with a sign company, didn't say?
Yeah, I sent an email to Rich. He said he's gonna get back to me, but he hasn't gotten back to me.
Oh, Rich Manzi?
Yes.
I can deal with Rich. Okay. Yeah. I can help you with that, didn't say.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry to go off the rails, Mr. Chair. But so Mr. Tabell, that's fine.
All right. Anybody else? Questions, concerns, or do you want to move forward here?
I'm ready to move forward.
Well, Mr. Chair, I will not be making this motion. I think you know how I'm voting, so
Okay.
someone else is gonna have to make a motion.
All right, Chip, you or Joe, you guys ready to make a motion then?
Sure.
Mickey?
Mr.
I
Chair, I'd
don't
like to
know
make,
that you can't make a motion if you even vote no, but that's okay. I'll try to pull it together.
Mickey, I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
I'd like to make a motion to, Chip, were you gonna make them together? What'd you just say?
Feel free, go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the former, I don't have the address in front of me, the former Kumon site on Main Street,
382 Main Street, Mike.
382 Main Street for approval as a daycare center,
Special permit for a daycare center. Yeah.
special permit for a daycare center.
I think you gotta walk through all the prongs though, Nick.
Yeah.
You gotta walk through all the
That's what I'm
special
looking
permits.
for the application.
Chip, I'm gonna need your help.
Yeah, well, that's why I wasn't ready to do it. I didn't know where this would be happening. I gotta pull up all the,
It's cheat sheet.
Section 190-40.
yeah, I don't have my zoning bylaws in front of me.
Oh, okay. You want me to read them into the record, Mr. Chair? I have them right in front of me.
Yeah, go ahead then. It's getting late.
Okay, I'll read them into the record. Before granting a special permit granting authority with due regard to the nature and condition of adjacent structures and uses in the district within which the stand is located shall find all the following general conditions to be fulfilled. 1, the use requested is listed in the table of use regulations as requiring a special permit in the district for which the application is made. 2, the requested use is essential and or desirable to the public convenience or welfare. 3, the requested use will not create or add undue traffic congestion or unduly impair pedestrian safety. 4, the requested use will not overload any public water, drainage, or sewer system or any other municipal system for such an extent that the requested use or any developed use in the immediate area or in any other area of town will be unduly subjected to hazards affecting health, safety, or general welfare. 5, the requested use will not impair the integrity or character of the district or adjoining districts, nor be detrimental to the public health, convenience, or welfare. 6, the requested use will not, by its addition to a neighborhood, cause an excess of that particular use that could be detrimental to the character of said neighborhood.
So, Mr. Chairman, given that the reading of the prongs of a special permit, I move that we grant a special permit for the daycare center at 382 Main Street, Wakefield. Is that the right address, Brian?
It is.
And that there's a condition that we reserve the right for the approval of signage at a future date. And that the
I'll second.
applicant has met all the prongs of the condition of the special permit.
I'll second that combined motion.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? Regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Dave,
No.
Mickey,
Yes.
and I will vote yes. Matters approved 4-1 vote. Okay, moving on. We're on to other good luck with the daycare. Didn't say.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Other matters, 10 Broadway, New Creek LLC, request for an extension. Mr. McGrail, I have your letter here.
Yep.
To extend the time for the applicant to exercise the rights on the various special permit. Oh, okay. Are you looking for a specific date?
Yes, we believe there's good cause for this. The property, as you know, is multifamily at 10 Broadway. This involves, the unique thing in Wakefield is that Wakefield only allows 1 year for exercise of the permits. The statute allows bylaws to allow towns to allow up to 4 years. So the state says towns bylaws can allow up to 3 years. Wakefield allows 1, which is very antiquated. And for the types of projects, as you know, you've given extensions on a lot of these projects in the past. To get up and under construction within a year is really difficult, especially in today's environment. So we've got an extensive construction work to do on this site. We've got to raise an existing building. We're in an environmentally sensitive area with Lake Quantapowhat. We also had recently thrown at us that we've got to deal with the MBTA because of our proximity to the railroad tracks. So we have to go through a process with them for them to review to make sure that we have certain conditions on our construction with them, not to impair any railroad impacts. So that's a process that we've commenced with them, but it's going to take some time. So we're asking for a 6-month extension until this decision was clocked in with the town clerk on November 13, 2023. We're looking for an extension on the permits, on the special permits and the variance until May 13th, 2025, that being a 6-month extension. And we might be back, but
Mr. Chair, you always know I like to get Mr. McGrail when I can. Hopefully he hasn't moved Lake Quantapowhat to Crystal Lake and moved Crystal Lake to Lake Quantapowhat. But in case he hasn't, I believe he's very concerned about Crystal Lake.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Tabell.
No problem.
Crystal Lake.
And then as an aside, the fact that they're only looking for a 6-month extension, I have no problem with that because it is true. Things take time now. And I'm fine with a 6-month extension.
Well, I go to that gym, so I wouldn't mind a year extension since I go to that gym.
Yeah,
but
you're not getting it.
We might be back again.
You're not getting it.
But I'm fine with the 6 months.
Anybody else have a strong opinion here?
No.
Okay, I voted against this thing, but I'm not going to be an obstructionist, so I'm not going to.
Well, I will say this one thing, maybe for the future. if we looked at the large quantum power project, we gave them an extension. Because
Or
we gave
three.
them because we gave them an extension, we didn't hit a lot of our affordable housing goals, and maybe that gets us to 10%, or maybe it didn't, but maybe we wouldn't be dealing with some of these other 40Bs on that lot. And
No,
great, if we had got to 10% with
Permanent,
the 8,
not-
sorry, I heard somebody else there.
No,
And it makes a difference.
yeah, but
6
reality
months,
is
6
construction,
months
you
is
can't
different
pull-
than a year. So.
Right. You can't pull a project together like this in a year. It's almost physically impossible to break ground that quick and get.
I know it's different now these days, but it's just something I struggle with now.
Yeah, that's why I'm happy they're only looking for 6 months.
Bylaw, I think when the bylaw review committee, you know, I've been going to those, and the suggestion on that is to go to 3 years.
Yeah, you're not gonna get 3 years, Mr. McGrail, but maybe a little bit of an extension.
Maybe 2.
That was a nice try. That was a great try for late at night, but.
Will you take 2 years, Mr. Tello?
I'll say though, Mick, that when we sought the safe harbor on the other ones too, there's another way to do it. When we permit them, if you permit so many within the last couple of years, that's another way to get a safe harbor, than 40B. So we don't lose it on some of the counts, but
But they drop
never
off if
gonna
they
get
don't
to-
pull a building permit, right? So it's on,
Yeah.
it's off, and that's what I
Yeah.
think what Mickey's speaking to, and that it can affect like
Yeah.
our ability to claim a safe harbor. So it's a valid point, but Chip has a good point too, and Brian, it's
You know, I mean,
6
they're all
months is
good
fine.
points.
Let's just give them the 6 months and move on, please.
Yeah. Motion's in order then. I don't see anyone jumping
Go
up and
for it,
down
Chip.
saying no. So.
Go for it, Chip. You're the motion man tonight.
I move that we approve. I move that we approve the extension to, is it May 13th, Brian, 2025, 2024?
May 13th, 2025.
5.
Yeah.
I move that we extend for 6 months to May 13th, 2025.
Second.
Motion's been made, seconded. Any further dialogue? Hearing, seeing none, regular voting members, Chip,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Dave,
Yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
and I vote yes. You got your extension, Mr. McGrail.
Thank you.
Next up, other matters, 894 Main Street, T-Mobile, request for administrative review to upgrade telecommunications facility. Someone here for that? Anybody?
They give up.
Hello? Gail, do you remember who filed it?
Yes, I think he's here, Jay Barboda. I think that's
He
him.
fall asleep? He fall asleep? on us?
I thought it was him. Yeah,
It
there he
was.
Yeah.
I have the letter. Yep.
Yeah, Mr. Barboda, can you unmute yourself, maybe turn your screen on, walk us through this very
There we
quickly?
go. Yeah, took me a minute. Yeah, no, thanks for your time. This is a 894 Main Street. It's the
Please
cell
introduce yourself, name,
Oh.
address, who you're working for. I know
Yeah.
it's late. Sorry,
Jim
Tom.
Fedora. I work for
No.
Crown Castle. Address is 1800 West Park Drive in Westboro, Mass. This application is for 894 Main Street, the cell tower. It's T-Mobile. They have an existing 9 antennas on the tower at 98 feet. And they're going to remove 6 of those 9 antennas and replace them with new antennas. T-Mobile also has 2 radio cabinets on the ground, which they're going to replace with 2 new radio cabinets. I can try and share with you. I don't see the share here, but okay. So do you want me to share?
Yeah, please do.
Okay, let me share the drawing here. Let me see if I can. Okay. You can see it. Can you guys see that drawing?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
This is just your front thing though, so if you could walk us through quick.
I see, okay, so I'll take you to okay, these are the two existing cabinets. This is a plan view looking down on the site. This is the cell tower right here. Again, a closer view of the two existing radio cabinets, and they're gonna be replaced with two, new cabinets. And then this is the tower elevation. Here are the existing antennas of T-Mobile right here. These are the ones that are being replaced. This is existing, and these two are being replaced, and they're right here being replaced for a total of 6. That's really essentially it. It's just a
Mr.
replacement of.
Barbosa, can you tell me when these plans were, can you just go to the right and blow it up for when they were
Sure.
issued?
Yeah.
When the last revision was?
Yeah. Let me see if I can get over. 6/14/24.
Do you have the language for this one, Chip? Because I do have it.
No, I don't. I usually just say as per.
I have it if you want me to do this one.
Feel free. I would love you to. I was unprepared this evening.
But yeah, makes sense. We see these all the time, and there's just another one, Mr. Chair. So
Yep.
Seems reasonable.
Any other comments or questions from the board before we go to a motion here?
No.
All right, hearing, seeing none, a motion's in order.
So, Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we grant the applicant's request as presented tonight in accordance with the plans presented by Crown Castle and B&T Group, dated June 14, 2024, at the location of this wireless communication facility at 894 Main Street, Wakefield. And we determine that this determination satisfies the standards for an eligible facilities request of an existing wireless tower or base station in accordance with section 6409 of the Middle Class Tax Relief and Job Act of 2012.
Seconded.
Motion's been made, seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none. Dave,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Chip,
Yes.
Mickey,
Yes.
I vote yes. Okay, I'll have the letter for you in town hall, Mr. Barboda, by the end of the week.
Yeah,
Barbara Dorr,
okay.
sorry. Can you stop sharing too?
Thank you very much.
Have a good
Thank
night.
you. All right, on to clerk board and comments.
Nothing for me. All quiet.
Is Brian still on?
No.
Did Brian sign
No.
off?
Do we know what the
The
pipes
only
are?
thing,
Oh,
the only
sorry,
thing that I don't think we've closed the loop on is Noria.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
If somehow we can either.
well, we'd already
coordinate-
kind of, yeah, we could, I don't want to put it on you, Chip, if you don't want to do it, but we kind of gave
No,
you
I'm
the
happy to do it.
authorization.
We just have to, are you okay with a site visit? I thought, I don't know where we ended it. I thought we were gonna say that Joe and I might do a site visit and see what the options were.
Yeah, find out why they need them. I don't
Yeah.
think
Well,
we've
there,
got
I
an
saw,
explanation for it.
they're at plenty of the other gas stations too. That was brought up. The one that Circle K is in the back. The one at Cumberland Farms is on the Gingerbread House side. So they seem to be, when I looked at them, they seem to be pretty close to where they do the filling stations.
That's
close.
what my thought is that's a vent of some sort.
Yeah.
But none of
Some
them
only
are
has
that
one or
tall.
two. Noria has 4, I believe, because of the 4 different
I
tanks
think
they
there's
have.
4
or-
tanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, at least let's do it. If you guys can do the site visit, see if they can't get them smaller or something. I don't know.
All right, I'll
Just not
request,
so visible.
through you, Tom, I'll request Brian to set something up.
Yeah.
Have you all been in there? That building, the store is huge.
It's
I mean,
beautiful.
it's
Yeah.
very spacious inside. I haven't tried the food yet, but it's spacious. And it's a
Looks
nice
good.
site. I think they did a nice job.
Plenty of room around the pumps too. There's plenty of parking, to be honest with you. It's a lot more parking than I thought it would be.
Hmm.
So,
Interested to see when school starts and the Dole Bear parents. I was there once myself, but there was a lot of use of
Yeah.
that site. But we'll
I
you
just
see how
wonder
it
if we're
gets
gonna
used
get,
when there's schools in session. But yeah,
I wonder if we're gonna hear some flack about the diesel fuel there too. Next to the school, if it's drawing any trucks off the highway, but.
yeah.
I'll let
And
you
and
know.
one
I'll
good
let you
thing
know
is
in
it
a
won't,
couple
it
months.
won't draw 18-wheelers or any of that. And they can't put up signs on the highway, so.
Yeah,
I actually know someone who owns a diesel truck, just like a pickup or whatever, some kind of truck that they're like, I love it. It's great that there's now diesel in town. I can just go
Was
fill it.
that Joe Pride?
That was me. That's why I voted for him.
No,
I developed my truck there every week.
somebody else. He's like, yeah, I always used to have to go to
All right,
Reading
I
or
move that
whatever.
we adjourn.
we'll do
Minutes.
minutes, but we don't have
No,
minutes.
no minutes this
Oh,
week.
Oh,
You
that's
had
right.
to,
Time
you
gone
had
by
to,
me.
wow, I was just trying to let it slide and somebody had to call
I
her
know,
out
thank you,
on it.
Chip.
Wow.
Yep,
All her vacation time. She just hasn't gotten around to it.
yep. Thanks anyway, Chip.
I tried.
All right, guys.
Motion to adjourn.
Thanks for your patience. We're adjourned. We'll
Not
see you in a
bad.
month.
Have a good night, everyone.
Have a great
Good night.
See you
summer,
in a few
guys.
weeks.